Chapter 900. Akiji rarely gets angry. But that doesn't mean that he is a wooden man who never gets angry. Often, the more good-tempered a person is, the more terrible he is when he gets angry. Even though Akiji's physical strength was severely overdrawn at the moment, the strong temperament of a generalissimo did not change. Being betrayed by the government he trusted the most, the blow to Akiji was self-evident. It was absolutely no less than being struck by lightning. The world government officials in front of him are also not ordinary. Although their foreheads are sweating and their bodies are slightly bent, in the end they still resisted Akiji's oppression. The 5 elders said that if you are willing to continue to stay in the marine even if you retire, it's okay. But if you want to walk around the world freely, this is absolutely impossible. The leader of the black-clothed man said. Akiji has been in the marine for nearly 30 years. During this period he has performed countless tasks, and most of them involve some unknown secrets. If such a character is released, I am afraid that the 5 elders will be uneasy. Just like Z, Garp, and Sengoku, even if they really retire, they will stay in the marine headquarters to teach recruits. It is impossible for Akiji to travel around the world unfettered. In his career as an admiral, Akiji has participated in countless secret tasks, and even involved in scandals of the world government. Now that Akiji is defeated, no one knows if he will reveal all the secrets of the past. Therefore, the 5 elders naturally can't tolerate him going far away. Goodbye, Mr. Admiral. The black-clothed man's thumb was wrapped in armament haki, and he slowly walked towards Akiji, aiming at Akiji's heart. Even if he is an admiral, if his heart is pierced, he will definitely die. Akiji's face was extremely ugly, and his fists were sweating. As an admiral of the marine, he is not afraid of death, but to die in such a remote place and to be killed by such an ant, there is a burst of anger in his heart. And this way of death is definitely the most tragic death of an admiral in the history of the marine. Akiji's heart is naturally unwilling. However, even if he struggled, it was useless. His physical strength was severely overdrawn, and it was difficult to move his arm, let alone fight back. Luogu sighed and immediately closed his eyes in despair. Boom! A silent explosion suddenly fell, and then the black-clothed man who wanted to kill Akiji flew out. Boom boom boom. The leader of the black-clothed man and the mountain in the distance were smashed together and turned into a pool of minced meat and mud. The leader of the black-clothed man, whose strength is comparable to a marine vice-admiral, was instantly killed. Who on earth did this? The remaining black-clothed men were on guard as if they were facing a great enemy. Their insignificant observation haki also spread, trying to take in the wind and grass around them into their eyes. However, even if they scratched their heads, they didn't feel the existence of the creatures. Noticing the abnormality, Akiji's eyes were like torches. Recalling the War of the Best a while ago, a relieved smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He immediately lay down on the ground without any worries. The black-clothed man's eyes Kill Kazan first. The black-clothed man's, the missions the ZSTT have similarly, an incomparably powerful force suddenly attacked, instantly shattering the bodies of several people. They could not withstand a single blow and exploded into a bloody mist. The blood-colored plum blossoms covered the ground. The strength of these people was about the level of lieutenant generals. In the blink of an eye, they were killed by bloody violence. The most terrible thing was that there was no one around, as if it was done by a ghost who pitted Akiji. It's time for you to show yourself. Akiji's tone was filled with vicissitudes as he sighed. After a while, a ripple appeared in the void 10 feet in front of Akiji. Immediately, countless photons condensed and dustless flashed from head to toe. Are you here to kill me as well? Akiji was quite calm and immediately looked at the smashed body. It seems that they are not, they are the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars. What is your purpose, Louis South? I'm not a Marine Admiral now. Akiji's tone was bitter. In just a few minutes he fell from the altar and almost lost his life. His mixed feelings could not hide the bitterness in his heart. If you were a Marine Admiral, I wouldn't have come to you and I wouldn't have saved you. In short, the enemy of my enemy is my ally. Dustless smiled mysteriously, and his light tone was full of endless magic, pulling Akiji's nerves. Enemy of my enemy? Akiji's eyes flashed with doubts, and he immediately stared at the black-clothed man who had turned into a bloody mist. Akiji's eyes flashed. You mean the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars? As a celestial dragons, you should be their immediate superior. When did you become their enemy? Akiji breathed a sigh of relief, and his tone was full of joy. He was not afraid of death, but even if he died, the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars would pay a heavy price. After being slapped in the face, Akiji was not that kind of person. The grudge between me and the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, is not important. Anyway, you don't want to die like this, do you? I can give you the light of life. Chapter 901. One thought between heaven and hell. Now Akiji was facing such a choice. His eyes quickly changed. He still had dreams that had not been realized for the time being, and he was unwilling to die. Therefore, compromise was inevitable. You know what to do. Secretly laughing in his heart, Dustless had long expected this. Akiji was not afraid of death, but the Gorosei's previous actions may have aroused the hatred in his heart, and he absolutely can't die so quietly. At the very least, he must retaliate against the Gorosei. I want to thank them. After a long silence, Akiji said inexplicably, if it wasn't for the ruthlessness of the Gorosei this time, I am afraid that I have been foolishly maintaining world peace for them. Hearing Akiji's words, Dustless smiled. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed in the human world. The situation of the entire world had also changed drastically. In the brightly lit villa of Martialworld. Rubbing his sleepy eyelids, Wu Qin crawled out from the bed and stretched himself. On the soft mattress, the 3 naked bodies were enough to make one's imagination run wild. The delicate white and tender face, the blush and intoxication that had not yet dissipated made people unable to help but think. Looking closely, it was Khalifa, Perona, and Hancock. 2 years had passed, and Dustless had finally managed to trick them to the point where they could sleep together. Reluctantly getting up from the bed, Dustless carefully put on his clothes. Sure enough, a woman's fragrance is a hero's grave, this is right. Wu Qin lowered his head and smiled bitterly. He put on his clothes awkwardly. For so many years, it was Hancock who took care of his daily life. The meticulous life made him lazy. Now he was extremely unskilled in putting on his own clothes. Soft and boneless white hands came from behind, gently tidying up Dustless's clothes. Her movements were light and delicate, which was the opposite of Dustless. It's hard for you, Hancock. Dustless opened his arms and let Hancock dress him. He sighed, 2 years, time flies. It has been almost 2 years since the last time he rescued Akiji. During this period, countless major events have happened. The most noteworthy event is nothing more than the changes in the Marine headquarters. Sakazuki was promoted to Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral, Fujitora, and a strong man named Green Ox became a new Marine Headquarters Admiral. During the War of the Best, Marlin had completely sunk into the sea, and the Marine Headquarters went to the New World, showing the new Fleet Admiral Sakazuki's determination to fight the New World pirates. "All right, young master." As if remembering something, Hancock suddenly walked to the table, picked up the newspaper that was delivered yesterday, and immediately handed it to Dustless. Yesterday, all the members of the Straw Hat Gang appeared in the Sabaody archipelago and left after making a big scene. Taking Hancock's newspaper, the headline of the Straw Hat Gang sweeping the pacifists is clearly visible. Their progress is really fast. If I remember correctly, 2 years ago they couldn't even fight back against the pacifists. Now they can easily kill them. It's worthy of praise. Dustless slowly nodded and praised. The fastest progress is estimated to be the Straw Hat Manchi D. Luffy. After Rayleigh was killed in the War of the Best, he concentrated on training with Red Hair Shanks, and his strength naturally grew by leaps and bounds. What about the latest movement? Did they go to the Fishman Island? The corner of his mouth was slightly raised, revealing a playful arc. The Fishman Island is not what it used to be. It is completely controlled by Dustless's lover, Princess Otoheim, and the Fishman Island does not need the protection of various forces. It is enough to protect itself. Yes. Hancock was stunned and looked at Dustless with surprise, and immediately nodded. Their ship has been coated and left. Although their whereabouts are unknown, if they want to pass through the second half of the New World, they can only go to the Fishman Island. The second half of the New World or across the Red Line, or this is the Fishman Island. It is self-evident which one is safer. Across the Red Line, the enemy is the world government, which is far more terrifying than the marine government. Ta-ta-ta. In the corridor, the sound of messy footsteps suddenly came, and then a man in black with a restrained look floated into the eyes. Lois Nansaint, your letter. The black-robed man respectfully handed the envelope to Wu Qin, and immediately bowed and asked to leave. Dustless frowned and looked at the envelope in his hand. His eyes flashed with surprise and curiosity. After coming to this world for more than 10 years, it is the first time that someone contacted him in such a subtle way. Puchi. A wisp of chakra overflowed from his fingertips and shattered the envelope, and the content was exposed to Dustless's eyes. That old woman Bigu Momo wants to occupy Sister Odoheim's Fishman Island. Hancock's beautiful big eyes were burning, and her raised tone was obviously murderous. That fat woman wants to eat dessert. It's really not easy, but she doesn't have to do it at all costs. Dustless shook his head. The sender was Odoheim of the Fishman Island, and the content was that Bigu Momo forcibly asked for the Fishman Island for the dessert of the Fishman Island. It's a bit childish. Chapter 902. Although Princess Odoheim and Dustless rarely met each other, the relationship between the two was inseparable. After more than 10 years, the naive and optimistic Princess Odoheim also saw through the nature of the world. The strong were respected. As a weak group, if they didn't want to be destroyed, they had to continue to become stronger, or they had to rely on others. There was no other way. Therefore, although Princess Odoheim and Dustless rarely met, as the world situation became more and more tense, and there were riots everywhere. Although the two hadn't seen each other for several years, Odoheim didn't alienate Dustless. Instead, she contacted Dustless more frequently. Master, what do you plan to do? The strength of the Fishman Island is not what it used to be, but it's still not enough to fight against Jianghu. It's a completely unequal war. Hancock said with a slightly pessimistic tone. If Dustless didn't intervene, sooner or later, the Fishman Island would be swallowed by Bigu Mam. What should I do? Dustless lay comfortably on the soft killing machine, his head on Hancock's knees, looked up at the exquisite ceiling and immediately closed his eyes faintly. In the next few months, this world is about to enter the end. With his eyes closed, Wu Qin muttered to himself. His light voice revealed an irrefutable conviction. Even if one sometimes felt that it was impossible, he couldn't help but be deeply immersed in it, unable to extricate himself. You plan to destroy Bigu Mam? On the bed, Khalifa woke up and rubbed her hazy eyelids. She stared at Dustless and sighed. Are you going to kill her? Khalifa's casual words may sound like a funny joke to outsiders. The Jianghu were not idiots. How could they be killed so easily? At first, Khalifa also thought it was ridiculous, but later she lived under the same roof with Dustless, and her understanding of him gradually deepened. This man who hadn't aged for more than 10 years was actually the author of myths. Any incredible thing was easily done by him. Khalifa often felt like she was living in a mythical world. Kill her? It's a pity. After all, he's one of the 4 emperors. He's a good chess piece. He's very suitable to be one of the 6 realms. Turning his head, Dustless looked at Khalifa with a prodigal expression. Although I'm rich and have a lot of corpses, I can't be so prodigal. In the whole world, there aren't many who have reached the level of Jianghu. Making 100 Beast Kaido one of the 6 paths is the way to save resources. You know how to cherish resources? How many pirates have you slaughtered? Rolling her eyes at Dustless, Perona said snappily. Shortly after, she suddenly felt that her body was cold, and her hands subconsciously stroked her delicate body. It was actually naked. Bastard. Her charming face immediately flushed red. She immediately grabbed the pillow next to her and threw it at Dustless. Due to her poor skill, it didn't hit Dustless. Weren't you willing to do it last night? Wu Chen's thin lips slightly raised and he said with a playful tone. You dare to say that? Hearing that, Perona was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices. She was so angry that she laughed. Her slender fingers trembled as she pointed at Dustless. Obviously she was very angry. Using illusion on others is also called voluntary? Speaking of this, Perona was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She understood Dustless's despicable and shameless character even more. The probability of anyone or something that he valued escaping from Dustless's evil claws was 0. From the moment you became my subordinates, it means that you are all mine. How do I arrange my own things? Do I need to tell others? Dustless asked indifferently. Hearing that, Hancock and Khalifa looked at each other helplessly. Perona's pretty face flushed red when she heard that, and she bared her teeth at Wu Qin. She had crossed the line and tried to steal a chicken but ended up losing the rice used to lure it. She had done this kind of thing many times. She was caught alive by Dustless and it was another merciless destruction. By the way, a while ago, La seemed to have become one of the members of Shichibukai. Dustless couldn't help but frown when he thought of Tragafar Law. He still saw the surgeon fruit's ageless surgery, and remembered it in his heart. After so many years, Law should have the ability to do ageless surgery. He's still a Shichibukai? It's a bit troublesome to do something to him, Hancock said with a frown. What about Shichibukai? That kid thought he was safe when he got the identity of a Shichibukai. Don't dream about it. I didn't kill him before because I didn't have the ability to do Ageless surgery. Now the time is ripe, it's time to use him to do ageless surgery. Dustless sneered again and again. The identity of a shichibukai is useful to others and there will be scruples, but it doesn't work on him. This layer of black and white halo is ineffective for him. With the identity of a celestial dragon and enough strength, he can despise everything in the world. The three women looked at each other and chose to be silent. Dustless looked like this. It was obvious that he was determined to clean up Law, who let him do the ageless surgery. An ordinary man is innocent. If he wants to blame, he can only blame himself for being a surgeon fruit user. Chapter 903. The three women can only agree, as Dustless said, they can only complain that Law is the surgeon fruit, and this is the only fruit in the world that can do ageless surgery. Law's bag must be made of paste if he thinks he can stay out of it by becoming one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Dustless sneered contemptuously. The only thing that can restrain others in this world is to be stronger than others. Doflamingo is also eager for the ageless surgery? Califa reminded after taking a look at Dustless. He won't live for a few days anyway. Caesar informed me a few days ago that Pluto will come out soon. At that time, Doflamingo will have no value. An ambitious and worthless lackey will only end up being abandoned. Dustless said with a murderous look in his eyes. Califa and Hancock's jade-like chin count, and they very much agree with Dustless's approach. Any traitor, no matter what era or place, is extremely hateful. People like Doflamingo are ingrates. You've trapped yourself in a trap of your own making. Perona's delicate face curled into an arc as she mocked in a peculiar manner. Hearing this, Wu Qin glanced at her mockingly, and a teasing smile hung on the corners of his mouth. The palm of his hand was aimed at the area where Perona was, and an invisible gravitational force drifted out. Wanxiangtianing. The body seems to ignore the existence of gravity, and the whole person is uncontrollably in the air. Immediately pulled by gravity, the delicate body is uncontrollably swept to the sofa where Dustless is located. My own trap? I have used Doflamingo for more than 10 years, how can it be regarded as my own trap but you? Her eyes narrowed and turned into a thin slit, and the gaze that shot out was particularly terrible. At least in Perona's eyes, Dustless at this moment made her feel very terrible. Dustless pulled Perona into his arms by her waist and gently blew a breath of hot air on her earlobe. He teased, "You deliberately provoked me time and time again. You can avoid death but you can't escape punishment. This is called spinning a cocoon around yourself." After saying that, Dustless did not care about Perona's struggle. He skillfully gestured her to swim away. He was not interested in this kind of weak resistance. Its effect was like a poison that seduced into one's bones. It would even arouse the hidden wildness in one's heart, inside the palace of Dressrosa. Pah, 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 pah. Porcelain shards suddenly appeared on the exquisitely decorated floor, and the crisp sound of glass shattering could be heard. Based on the reflection of the person on the floor, this person was undoubtedly Doflamingo. "Young master, you don't have to worry. Louis South, Saint, didn't do anything to us. Aren't you worrying too much?" A large number of members of the Don Quixote family were trembling. Although the angry Doflamingo wouldn't go so far as to disown his family, it would definitely be a nightmare for anyone who didn't open their eyes to provoke him. Yes, you still have the identity of Shichibukai to protect you. Even if he is lawless, he can't hurt you against the wishes of the 5 elder stars. Paika, a senior cadre of the Don Quixote family, said. At this moment each of them was covered in cold sweat, the pores on their body were uncontrollably enlarged, and the dense hairs on their skin were standing upside down. A huge oppression and hostility filled the interior of the palace, and there were countless magical weapons wandering behind them that could take their lives at any time. The identity of Shichibukai? Doflamingo, who was carrying the cadre, suddenly turned his head, revealing half of his blackened face. The blue veins on his forehead were bulging, and there were worms surging inside. It was extremely disgusting. If you had the strength of Louis South, would you be afraid of a mere Shichibukai? A hoarse rhetorical question made the cadre speechless, and they bowed their heads and didn't dare to look at Doflamingo's eyes. I'm afraid that when Pluto's construction period is completed, he can't wait to erase me. And that traitor Gecko Moria, he dared to betray me and cooperate with 100 Beast Kaido, and that he deserved to be killed, idiot. Thinking of Gecko Moria's death 2 years ago, Doflamingo gritted his teeth and said, his tone was full of joy. Originally, Gecko Moria suddenly agreed to cooperate with him, but the result was that he joined 100 Beast Kaido and others. He deserved to die. A group of Don Quixote family cadre exchanged glances and looked at the furious Doflamingo, and they all understood why he was so angry. Gecko Moria disliked Doflamingo, so he chose one of the Yonko, 100-beast Kaido, and Admiral Z who defected from the Marine. Once I lose my final value, it will attract a bloody massacre. Kaido is dead, we can find other enemies of Royce South to cooperate. Red Hair Shanks, one of the Yonko, and Blackbeard Titch, one of the Yonko, 2 years ago. Even the new Admiral Fujitora has a deep grudge against Royce South. Large carnivores on the verge of desperation are extremely dangerous. Under the oppression of Dustless, Doflamingo can no longer care so much. In the past 2 years, Dustless has become more and more alienated from him, which is an extremely dangerous signal. If he doesn't prepare in advance, only bones will accompany the end. Hearing this, Princess Aji couldn't say anything and could only be discouraged and powerless. For you, maybe it's just a trivial person, but you also know the situation of the Fishman Island. Bachmas' bounty is only 330 million berries, but it is also an unprecedented enemy for the Fishman Island, not to mention the biggest pirates behind him. Princess Aji sighed, and her tone was full of endless sadness. In the face of this situation, she could only hold Dustless's thigh tightly, let alone find self-confidence. Hey, a princess of the Fishman Island dares to let me wait? You Fishman Island are impatient. The arrogant voice resounded through the empty hall. Dustless raised his head and looked as far as he could, and a short man with a lion head floated into his eyes. Seeing this, Dustless's dry lips opened slightly, and a sentence directly made Bachmas vomit blood. Little lion, tell Biggest Momo that the Fishman Island is my territory. Hearing this, Bachmas's rough old face turned red, and the beard on both sides of his mouth trembled, and the hostility broke out of his body, full of endless killing intent. Little lion? No one dared to call him that. Immediately, his eyes followed the source, and the dense murderous aura of his life suddenly disappeared, and his face was dull. Marine Admiral? Bachmas's face changed greatly, and immediately looked at Princess Aji next to Dustless, and suddenly understood something, and the words that came to his mouth were taken back. Not only that, but his forehead was sweating and his blonde hair was wet. Immediately, he seemed to understand something, and forced himself to raise his hands, and then turn them into black fists, covered with armament hockey. Do you want to resist? Dustless took Princess Aji into his arms and smelled the fragrance of her bare face, and asked on her shoulder. Don't resist? When a pirate meets a marine there is only death. Do you want me to wait for my death? Bachmas asked. In fact, he also knew that he was not Dustless's opponent. Since he would be caught anyway, it was better to give it a try. Don't worry, I didn't come here to arrest you. Relax. Dustless waved his hand and said, and immediately the corner of his mouth outlined a fierce arc. The task I gave you is very simple. Go to Biggest Momo. Chapter 905. Bachmas looked at Dustless on the throne. As for Princess Otoheim in his arms, she was ignored by Huali. In this world, only the strong will be respected. Otherwise, even the king of a country will be a plaything in the hands of others. Princess Otoheim is a plaything. She is more like a pet raised by Dustless. The world is so cruel, but at the same time it is very simple. As long as you are strong enough, you can do anything you want. What do you want me to tell my mother? Bachmas's tone was full of vigilance. Mother? Dustless's face was strange and his whole body was cold. He looked at Bachmas's lion head. This guy is 40 or 50 years old, but he shamelessly called Big Umama mother. Not only him but all the members of the Big Umama pirates seem to be the same. It is not difficult to see that this is Big Umama's request. There is something wrong with the heads of these pirates. Shaking his head, Dustless was relieved. If a pirate's head is normal, then they are not pirates. He said slowly, don't be nervous. If I am determined to kill you, you won't even last a second. Dustless gave him a relaxed look, indicating that he doesn't need to worry. He is just a pawn, there is no need to kill him, and Dustless is counting on him to pass on a message. Tell Baigu Mamu to let her live for a few more days. When I'm free these 2 days, I'll take her old life. Yawning, Dustless said hazily on the couch. His lazy appearance was like a thorn, deeply piercing into Bachmas's heart, making him almost go berserk. Maybe it was not because of Dustless's identity as a Marine Admiral, he already went berserk. You Marines want to kill my mother? Bachmas's killing intent was exposed, and his loosened fists were clenched again. His momentum also rose to the limit, and his fighting spirit broke out. You are so loyal to Big Umama, it's amazing. There were ripples in his eyes and he looked at Pakmus with surprise and immediately said, "Although loyalty is praiseworthy, but you are a fool. You often belong to the kind of people who die the fastest." Swish. A sharp whistling sound came from the front. Pakmus vanished into thin air, and only a black afterimage could be seen rushing over. Due to the extreme speed, one could even feel the wind blowing against them. "It's just a lion, but it's quite fast." Patting Princess Odoheim's shoulder, Dustless narrowed his eyes and shot out a strange light. A mere wild beast, it didn't even have the most basic ability to distinguish between the strong and the weak. This wild beast was too unprofessional. Got it? The lightning-like afterimage cut through the thistles and thorns, as if entering the no-man's land. In an instant, it was close to Dustless's face, wrapped around the black fist of armament hockey and blasted out. Pakmus was overjoyed. Just as he thought that he would succeed, a strange energy fluctuation swept out like a tide. A powerful force instantly sent him flying. Shinra Tensei. Pakmus, whose expression changed drastically, could not control his body at all. In an instant he was sent flying back dozens of meters. Ka. The exquisite wall in the palace trembled fiercely, and immediately a large hole was left. Pakmus' face was pale, and blood was visible to the naked eye from the corner of his mouth. Compared to his previous high morale, he was now gloomy and disheartened. After all, Pakmus was a pirate with a bounty of more than 300 million berries. Now that he was killed in seconds, the depression in his heart was obvious. "Why do I feel that he has become a lot weaker all of a sudden?" Princess Odoheim was speechless. A few hours ago Pakmus was still rampant, but now he was particularly weak. Princess Odoheim even had the illusion that she could easily defeat him. Guru. The unexpected sound of Den Mushi came. Dustless's face turned and fell on Pakmus Den Mushi. The Den Mushi with heavy makeup and purple lips was particularly conspicuous. The first person in Dustless's mind was Bigu's mom. The palm of his hand covered the Den Mushi, and an invisible force floated out. Wansho Tensei. The sound of the Den Mushi on the ground immediately fell into Dustless's eyes. Under the curious gaze of Princess Odoheim, Dustless picked up the Den Mushi. "Pakmus, you, long time no see." Charlotte Lin, nickname Bigu's mom. On the other side of the Den Mushi, Bigu's mom was stunned when she heard this and immediately roared angrily. "Who are you? If you don't want to die, get out of here and give the Den Mushi to Pakmus. That bastard actually delayed the time to send me dessert." Even if he was now separated from Bigu's mom, Dustless clearly felt the killing intent of the Den Mushi. As the rumors say, really an idiot who doesn't want to die for dessert. Dustless said bluntly to the Den Mushi. It doesn't matter what he said, but Bigu's mom on the other side of the Den Mushi was furious. "Do you know who I am?" "I am one of the Xianxia." "Bigu, I know you are one of the Xianxia, Bigu's mom, but I am not interested in your past. You just need to know that I have a unique interest." The cold air froze time and space, and the ice fragments floating in the air were visible to the naked eye. "My biggest shortcoming is that I like to hunt the Xianxia." Chapter 906. These words came too suddenly. Perhaps because it was too shocking, the acid that gushed out of Bigu Mamu's stinky mouth was able to keep the peace. "Who the hell are you?" After a while, Big Mom, who recovered, laughed angrily and said sarcastically, "Kill Xianxia for emperors? Do you think you are the Marine Admiral Louis South?" After her voice fell, Big Mom's mind began to wander. Somehow, she always felt that the indifferent voice on the other side of the Den Mushi was familiar and she seemed to have heard it before. After thinking for a while, there was no result. When she was about to ask, Dustless's teasing came. "Big Mamu, no matter what, we've met a few times. How could you forget me?" Dustless smacked his lips and said regretfully, then his thin lips opened slightly. "The Marine Admiral named Louis South you are talking about, is me." Big Mom was petrified on the spot when she heard this. At first she thought it was a joke. After Dustless reminded her, she suddenly remembered the experience of a few years ago, and the hazy figure in her mind also cleared the clouds to see the sky. A young man's back was inserted into her thoughts and she couldn't erase it. "What do you want?" Big Mom's tone was obviously not as arrogant as before, and her hoarse tone was full of fear. The War of the Best was only 2 years ago, and the world has not forgotten that amazing war. During this period, Dustless's performance was only a flash in the pan, but his invincible posture walked into everyone's heart. His life was rooted in the hearts of the world. Even if it was more than 2 years ago, the thin body that injured Whitebeard with overwhelming strength was still very clear. Now the world's strongest man, fell on the head of Louis South. "It seems that you seem to remember," with a slight smile, Wu Qin said in a magnetic tone. "What do you want to do?" "This question is ridiculous. When the Marine meets a pirate, they will fight to the death. What do I want from you?" Big Mom's expression changed sharply, and her breathing was abnormally heavy. Her tone was thick with the smell of gunpowder and hysteria. "Even if I die, I will drag you Marines down with me." Baigu's mom was not an idiot. She naturally knew what Dustless meant. Looking at the den mushi that almost jumped up, Dustless instantly understood that Bigu's mom, who was thousands of miles away, was not in a good mood, and he knew that she would not wait for death. "There might be someone who can drag me down with them, but it's definitely not you." Regardless of Bigu's reply, Dustless simply closed the den mushi. Just as he was about to close his eyes and take a nap, he heard the sound of celebration. Fortunately, Mother knows about it. Otherwise it might have caused a disaster. Bakhmus, whose body was on the verge of collapsing, rejoiced. His words revealed that he had just survived a calamity, and a faint smile appeared on his rough face. "Are you happy?" Dustless glanced at him and asked casually. "Nonsense, knowing that you are looking for trouble, Mother will be able to defend in advance. Mother is not an idiot like Whitebeard. She will lay a trap in advance and wait for you to die." Bakhmus raised his arms and shouted. He believed that the victory belonged to Bigu's mom. This kid? Hearing this, Wu Qin felt a chill all over his body. Every time he opened his mouth, he would say "mommy" and "mommy" again and again. Listening to this made him shiver all over. The taste of pirates is really so heavy. In the face of absolute strength, conspiracy is just a boring self-comfort. The Bigu's mom pirates are about to be destroyed. This is the driving force of history. It is not a coincidence or a well-planned conspiracy. This is fate. After a moment of silence, Dustless retracted his gaze and gathered a high-density beam of destruction on his toes. "No matter what happens to the Bigu's mom pirates in the end, it has nothing to do with you. The reason why you can live until now is because I was waiting for you to inform me. Who would have thought that your words would be replaced by that den mushi? Sorry, you still have to die." Under the indifferent gaze, the light on his toes also came out. Boom boom boom. In the closed palace, Dustless forced a big hole of 20 or 30 meters, and Dustless and Princess Odoheim on the throne were also exposed to the air. Boom. A smoking black body fell heavily on the ground, the heart stopped beating, the abdomen was scorched, and the internal organs were faintly visible. Seeing this scene, Dustless stretched and yawned tiredly. "I'm going to sleep for a while." Regardless of Princess Odoheim's reaction, Dustless closed his eyes and went into a trance. Princess Odoheim didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She wanted to break away from this warm embrace. An indescribable drowsiness also came to her heart, and she also fell into a dream. Fishman Island, 10 days passed in a flash. Princess Odoheim naively thought that if she refused the conditions of Bigu's mom, the people of Fishman Island would fall into a happy life. She didn't expect to face an unimaginable nightmare. Even the islanders, who were gentle in the past, glared at her with a fierce expression, and they couldn't wait to tear her to pieces. Even inside the palace, the cursing outside could be heard, and the tone was mostly the same, as if it had been discussed in advance, advocating the public execution of the king. Chapter 907. On top of the tall building, Princess Aji looked down at the crowd with her beautiful eyes. Her face was filled with disbelief. She had worked hard for the Fishman Island for more than 10 years. Now this group of people did not distinguish between right and wrong. Everyone said that they wanted to execute her with hatred. Why is it like this? The blood in her body was instantly drained. Princess Aji muttered to herself in disbelief. Her weak body swayed left and right. She looked like she would fall at any time. It's the same with humans and fishmen. You don't have to worry about it. Dustless went forward to support Princess Aji and explained softly, "You refused to let the Fishman Island become Bigumam's territory. These people will naturally blame you. This is understandable. After all, Bigumam is one of the 4 emperors, now. She can destroy the Fishman Island at any time. However, you refused Bigumam's condition. These fishmen will naturally hate you for leading them to their doom." Hearing that, Princess Aji was at a loss. She had dedicated her life to the Fishman Island. She did not expect that these loyal people would fight to execute her. She felt that the world was changing too fast. "I'm doing this for their own good. The whole world knows what kind of person Bigumam is. Even if the Fishman Island really goes into Bigumam's arms, it will be destroyed sooner or later." Princess Aji said sadly. Her delicate rosy face lost its luster. She looked down at the hysterical fishmen with a complicated expression. She suddenly felt that everything she did in the past was just deceiving herself. She suddenly felt like a clown that was abandoned by the whole world and treated coldly. Don't worry about it. This is human nature. When you are valuable and useful, they will lift you up high and put you on the altar. They will respect you like a god. But if you do something wrong one day and bring about a disaster, it will be like this scene. Don't talk about being in the same boat. It's good enough that they know their place. Gusts of breeze blurted out, and Dustless rationally explained, trying to pull Princess Aji out of the pain. These people are really heartless. It seems like they want to kill you and give your head to Big Imam to extinguish her anger. When a disaster came, everyone flew away. This was the nature of living things. Boom. Boom. An ear-piercing explosion attracted Dustless's attention. He looked carefully. It turned out that, are you kidding me? These bastards are too shameless to actually betray others. The corners of Dustless's mouth twitched, and he let loose a torrent of abuse. Below the gate tower, the army that originally belonged to the royal family betrayed them shamelessly. Not only that, but they also directly let the berserk fishmen into the palace. They aggressively rushed toward the location of Dustless and Odoheim. Run. These rioters are trying to kill us. Princess Odoheim pulled on Dustless's arm and was about to retreat, but her weak strength was useless. Dustless stood there like a statue and did not react. Escape? Why should we run? You didn't do anything wrong. They are the ignorant ones. Do they think that they can rest easy if they pledge allegiance to Big Imam? In your dreams. Dustless sneered. Baigu Mamu wanted to take over Fishman Island for himself, for nothing more than the desserts on the island. However, what Baigu Mamu wanted was beyond the limit of Fishman Island. If they couldn't take out that much, the island would be destroyed. Countless islands were destroyed by Baigu Mamu because of the delay in the dessert delivery cycle. Actually joining or refusing the Baigu Mamu pirates is a matter of time, but this group of people pushed all the faults on Princess Odoheim's head and reversed black and white. Wait slowly, there is no need to run away, not to mention Shirahoshi. It is not you who is wrong, it is Fishman Island. Glancing faintly at the panicked Princess Odoheim, Dustless sat calmly on the throne and drank, waiting for the mob. His main purpose of visiting Fishman Island this time was Shirahoshi. Ta-ta-ta. In the dark corridor ahead, there was a violent vibration and the entire palace trembled. Princess Odoheim walked to Dustless's side. She looked down at this group of compatriots in a high position. At the moment she felt particularly strange. Everyone seemed to be possessed and their eyes were blood red. Go back, this time I can let bygones be bygones. As long as everyone works together, we will be able to get through it. Princess Odoheim's voice hasn't fallen yet. The hatred and abuse of a group of fishmen, as well as all kinds of filthy words, fell into Princess Odoheim's ears and broke her last defense. Work together? Are you kidding me? It is you who is selfish and will bring disaster to Fishman Island. Burn this woman who scourges Fishman Island and give her to Baigu Mamu. She will forgive us. Take her head and give it to Baigu Mamu in exchange for our peace. As the princess you should feel happy. Dying for the entire Fishman Island is your obligation as the princess. Dustless looked at everything in front of him expressionlessly. He was silent, but his eyes were getting colder and colder. Everyone be quiet. A powerful voice sounded and a fishman with fangs came out of the crowd. His words were particularly useful. The noisy crowd suddenly became quiet, and many people cast a fanatical look at him. The world is fickle. I didn't expect this kid to be so lucky. Dustless was surprised to find that he actually knew this ugly fishman in front of him. Moreover, he was the ultimate villain of Fishman Island, Hody Jones. Looking around, he faintly had an answer in his heart. Perhaps everything in front of him was Hody Jones's doing. Chapter 908. No wonder the whole Fishman Island is in an uproar. It turned out to be this kid's doing. Her eyes fell on Hody Jones. He turned out to be an army of the palace. When Dustless killed Pokemus a few days ago, he was one of the officers and soldiers who cleaned up the body. Now this group of mobs is headed by Hody Jones. Obviously he is the one behind the scenes. You traitor, how dare you mislead people? Staring at Hody Jones, Princess Odoheim pondered for a moment and immediately understood the mystery. She looked at the triumphant Hody Jones with fire in her eyes. She, who has always been quiet, released a murderous aura. Sure enough, women can't be provoked. Dustless, who felt the murderous aura, also looked at Princess Odoheim in surprise. Even when he ruthlessly trampled on Princess Odoheim and turned her into a slave, he didn't see her release a murderous aura. Traitor? As if he heard the funniest joke in the world, Hody Jones opened his mouth and laughed. You are the one who betrayed the Fishman Island. You joined forces with humans and your opponent is a Marine Admiral. This is a great shame. In the end, Hody Jones' eyes were swallowed by countless blood vessels. The reason why he hated the Marines was because of Dustless. After all, Dustless destroyed his most respected tiger. Since you know that I am a Marine Admiral, you still have the courage to stand here. I don't know if you are confident in your own strength, or do you think that I dare not kill you? Wu Chen asked with interest. At the same time he released his murderous aura. Even if it was a little bit, it was like falling into an ice cellar for these people. Their scalps were numb and most of them fainted with white foam at the mouth. Only Hody Jones and his new Fishman pirates were holding on. It's useless to hate me. Even if you kill us, there are hundreds of thousands of people in the Fishman Island. Hody Jones hysterically said, and his words were wild. His purpose was to hope that the fishmen and humans would continue to kill each other. Now that he has done it, even if he completely falls, he will not regret it. Hate you? No, I want to thank you. Dustless shook his head and pointed to Princess Odoheim beside him and smiled. If you didn't do it so coldly and let the residents of the Fishman Island show their ruthless side, she would still be in the dark. Looking up, Princess Aji's face was cold and stern. Her former kindness were all restrained. She was like an iceberg, and her entire body was drifting with a desolate coldness that was isolated from the world. This was the meaning of rebirth out of the cocoon. If it wasn't for Hody Jones, the only way for Wu Chen to take Princess Odoheim and Shirahoshi away was to rob them. Who are you? Get away, don't get close to me. Terrified screams resounded throughout the entire Fishman Island, filled with endless panic. Dustless raised his head and looked into the distance. Moreover, he kept feeling that this tender and timid voice was somewhat familiar. Shirahoshi. Princess Aji was shocked when she heard this. She immediately rushed in the direction of the voice. Sinner of the Fishman Island, stop. Seeing Princess Odoheim flee, Hody Jones's eyes overflowed with savagery. His whole body was covered with a faint blood mist, no different from a ghost from hell. Water droplets dripped from his hand. Fishman Island Karate, water strike. The ball of water, which was powerful enough to pierce through steel, whizzed out. Just as it was about to pierce through Princess Odoheim's abdomen, at this critical moment, a black afterimage rushed over. It stared at the ball of water and gently squeezed it. Bang! The powerful water ball that was about to crush Consort Aji was easily caught by Wu Chen. Soon after, it was easily crushed like a balloon. What's going on? Dustless, who planned to teach Hody Jones a lesson, was puzzled. The palace, which was originally sunny, suddenly became gloomy. Dustless felt that some creature was watching him. Dustless leisurely turned his head, and the giant creature that appeared in his eyes made his breath stagnate. Run, the Sea King is coming. When did this level of Sea King appear on the Fishman Island? The length alone is more than 7 kilometers. Bastard, it seems that there is more than one Sea King. It must be Princess Odoheim's actions that angered the gods of the Fishman Island. Startled and shrill roars resounded incessantly. Immediately after, the murlocs surrounding the palace suddenly dispersed, fleeing in panic for fear that they would not be able to escape in time. Dustless didn't have time to take care of this group of fishmen, and his observation hockey spread out. How is it possible? Is it possible that a lot of people died there? After a while, Dustless opened his eyes and muttered to himself in a low voice. He was shocked to find that at least hundreds of Sea Kings with a length of more than 7 or 8 kilometers were wandering around the Fishman Island. And this number is skyrocketing. Attracting the Sea Kings is nothing more than blood, which can lead them to forage for food, but this exaggerated number is obviously wrong, and Dustless didn't kill anyone, he just stunned a lot of mobs who took the opportunity to make trouble with his murderous aura. Oh. Dustless's mind flashed, and a delicate mermaid figure suddenly appeared in his mind. If I'm not wrong, it should be Shirahoshi who awakened the ability of Sea King. The scream just now may be the inadvertent awakening of Sea King's ability and summoning a large group of Sea Kings. Chapter 909. Dustless was relieved. Under the detection of his Kenbun-shoku observation, the entire island was safe and sound, and there was no large-scale bloodshed, which confirmed his conjecture. Shirahoshi awakened the ability of Sea King. The dark shadow gradually approached. Dustless was slightly stunned and raised his head. A creature of tens of thousands of meters was coming, and its mouth was wide open, trying to annihilate the entire palace. Still can't control it? Frowning, Dustless pondered. If Sea King is completely awakened and can control the Sea King, Shirahoshi won't order the Sea King to attack the palace. Ah, it's a blessing to die with you. Even a Marine Admiral will be buried with us. God really takes pity on us. Hody Jones laughed loudly and his tone was full of joy. Dustless turned his head and glanced at Hody Jones, and his eyes flashed with contempt, and he immediately stared at the super-large Sea King in front of him. Not to mention that it was only tens of thousands of meters long. Even if it was dozens of times larger, it would be difficult to hurt him. You're wrong. It's not me who will be buried with you. This Sea King is here to attack you. The dark pupils turned, and the sharpness of the three Tomo Sharingan covered the eyes of the Sea King. With just a casual glance, the trajectory of the giant Sea King's movement changed dramatically. Boss, it seems that something is wrong. This Sea King seems to be coming for us. Hody Jones's brothers exclaimed, and the fear on their faces was clear. This Sea King, which was tens of thousands of meters long, attacked the new fisherman pirates, and its mouth was big enough to swallow the whole world. The Sea King's pupils changed dramatically, and it was the same as Dustless's three Tomo Sharingan. Hody Jones was gloomy, and his strong arm reached into his crotch and took out a lot of pills. His eyes flashed with madness, and he immediately drank it without hesitation. Boom boom boom, about a few seconds later, a majestic momentum erupted from Hody Jones's body, and the invisible waves turned into a substantial impact, and the surrounding walls instantly cracked. The walls that couldn't withstand this force collapsed and were annihilated. Although I don't know what happened. But now you can go to hell. Looking at the giant Sea King that was about to devour him, Hody Jones, whose body had mutated, roared. At this moment, his white hair was fluttering in the wind, and his entire body was filled with explosive power. A fist-sized water ball fell from his thumb. Fishman karate, water strike. The seemingly weak water ball instantly became extremely ferocious. It shot out like a cannonball and easily penetrated the Sea King's body. Useless thing, looking at the falling Sea King, Dustless was speechless. It was 10,000 meters tall, but it couldn't even withstand a single blow and was easily killed by Hody Jones. I am the same as you now. Hody Jones was overjoyed when he noticed the powerful energy surging through his body. His bright eyes stared at the expressionless Dustless as if he was looking at his prey. With a sinister smile, Hody Jones turned into an afterimage and rushed out, crossing layers of space. In just a few seconds he had crossed nearly 100 meters. Bang bang bang. Due to his terrifying strength, the ground would explode with every step he took, leaving behind huge footprints of Hody Jones. Dustless relaxed his eyebrows and frowned together. Suddenly he noticed that his right arm was grabbed by a rough hand. The uneven feeling made Dustless surprised. That miraculous drug is not bad. It actually allowed you to escape from the level of an ant. This is really worthy of celebration. Moving his gaze, Dustless stared at the arrogant Hody Jones. At this moment he had landed beside Dustless. The rough hand that grabbed his right arm was Hody Jones. However, it's just a flash in the pan. Soon you will become a candle in the wind. At that time I won't even need to do anything and you will enter the end. Glancing at Hody Jones, Dustless said calmly, "This kind of drug in exchange for power, the user had to pay with their life. TSK. So what? At least I can kill you before that happens." Hody Jones said confidently. Immediately, his eyes flashed with a raging red light and he laughed cruelly. "The difference between the current me and the previous me is huge. As long as I want to, I can easily tear your arm apart." Looking at the thin and small arm that was even thinner than a woman's arm, contempt flashed in his eyes. It was the complete opposite of his muscular and strong arm. "If you can try." Dustless stretched lazily and said lightly, "You're courting death." Hody Jones was so angry that he laughed. Dustless's lazy expression, as if he had just woken up, stimulated his nerves. Hody Jones immediately exerted his strength to the limit. "Break for me this is? How is this possible?" Hody Jones's eyes widened and his face was full of shock. He thought that Dustless's arm would be torn apart in an instant. However, this thin and weak arm had strangely changed and was swallowed by the black color. The skin was as hard as a meteorite and there was no way to break it. "You are indeed stronger than before, but the nature of an ant hasn't changed. It's useless to say more. Go to hell." Chapter 9-10. Hody Jones was shocked. Looking at the tender arm in his hand, he exhausted all his strength but could not move it at all. The arm that was obviously weak and fragile was surprisingly hard. With his strength, it was as difficult as ascending to the sky to leave a mark. So dazzling. The dazzling golden luster came to his face, and the shining light almost blinded his eyes. He instinctively closed his eyes and covered his eyes with his big hands. Through the thin gap between his fingers, he peeped at Dustless's every move. After a long while, until the light disappeared, he dared to open his eyes. Poochie. The sound of an object being penetrated sounded, and it was particularly simple and straightforward. Hody Jones was slightly stunned, and then he felt the burning pain, like a tide sweeping through all parts of his body. His vitality was also rapidly draining, and his murderous eyes were dim for a moment. Subconsciously, he looked at the stinging pain in his chest. Damn it. When did it happen? I didn't realize it. I took so many medicines, but I can't even keep up with his attack speed. Hody Jones screamed, his voice full of unwillingness. He instinctively reached for the other drugs in his crotch, only to find that there was nothing there. The fierce medicine just now had been eaten by him at once. There was no more for him to squander. It's your own strength that is too weak. Even if you took the medicine to enhance your strength, it's still too far away. It's far from enough to reach the level of being on par with me. A cold and uninterested voice startled Hody Jones, and he immediately roared in anger. His face was distorted with hatred and his eyes were filled with hatred. Bastard, don't look like it has nothing to do with you. If it weren't for you, Boss Tiger wouldn't have died. It's all your fault. Hody Jones spat everywhere. The person he respected most in his life was Tiger, and it was Dustless's fault that indirectly led to his death. Although Dustless finally gave him a way out and listened to Princess Aji's advice to let him go, the Grim Reaper still waved his sickle at Tiger and mercilessly harvested his life. Dustless looked down at Hody Jones indifferently like a mad dog, without any emotion in his eyes. You're right, it's indeed because of me, but, so what? Looking straight at Hody Jones, Dustless said faintly, more than 10 years ago he sneaked into Mariewa alone and rescued all the slaves. This fearless surge is indeed worthy of praise, but the world is so cruel. Since he dared to attack Mariewa, he must pay the price. Now you are no exception. The price for challenging me is your life. They chose their own path and no one forced them. At the beginning, Tiger was not killed because Princess Odoheim begged to be killed. Who would have thought that the kid would not only not be grateful but also become a pirate? Once again, a large amount of photons gathered at the tip of his feet, and the dazzling light was even more intense than before. The biting cold luster made people not dare to look directly at it, and the shadow of death remained in their minds, unable to be erased. Fishman Karate. Lightspeed kick. The beam shot out at the speed of light, and Hody Jones, whose stomach had been cut open, could not resist at all. He could only watch as the beam attacked him. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a huge circular fireball appeared in the void, and a destructive wave of air spread out, disintegrating the surrounding walls one after another. Hody Jones, on the other hand, lost his consciousness. His whole body was burnt, his heart stopped beating completely, and his whole body was filled with the smell of burnt meat. Run! Boss Hody was killed by the Marine Admiral. You idiots, get away from me. The new Fishman pirates retreat first, and the others stay where they are. Hody Jones, the leader, was dead and the new Fishman pirates fled in panic. Some of them were forced by Hody Jones to make up the numbers. Now that the boss has died, everyone naturally followed suit. Before you go, you have to leave something behind. The devil's whisper resounded behind him, and the Murlocs turned around mechanically. The fear in their eyes was clearly visible. Bastard, you are an admiral of the Navy, you should capture us, not kill us. His hands were brimming with high-density blazing flashes, and Dustless was already floating in midair. Should I put you in prison? Sorry, I don't have that much time. So you'd better die here. Dustless sneered and said ruthlessly, and at the same time, his hands were full of flashes, whistling out, and thousands of rays of light swallowed everyone in an instant. Yasakani no Magatama. The people gathered here were either the remnants of the new Fishman pirates or the mobs of the Fishman Island. Dustless was naturally merciless. He was not as kind as Princess Odoheim. Poochie. Poochie. The Murlocs that had scattered in all directions fell to the ground with painful expressions. Their bodies were covered with dense holes. The scene in the palace was too horrible to look at. All the living things that could move were killed by Dustless. Looking around, blood flowed like a river and bodies piled up like a mountain. Chapter 9:11. Turning his head and staring at the oppressive palace behind him, Dustless finally chose to burn it with fire. In this disgusting place, as long as he breathed a breath of air, it was extremely uncomfortable. The smell of the traitor's body made him uncontrollably nauseous. Boom! The monstrous fire spread rapidly, and in a short period of time, it spread throughout the entire broken palace. Almost all the people inside were obliterated by Dustless. Maybe after tomorrow, this place will become a pile of yellow earth. A tooth for a tooth, this is Dustless's principle of life. Inside the dark castle, it was a mess, broken porcelain was everywhere, the scene was full of debris, and of course there were mountains of treasures. In addition, outside the castle, there were dozens of sea kings that reached tens of thousands of meters, and they used their huge bodies to protect the castle. Shirahoshi, this is Princess Odoheim, who rushed over, looked at the ground and was dumbfounded for a while. The usually quiet castle was like a thief. Mother. Hearing this pleasant and familiar voice, a throbbing sound came from the dark corner of the wall. Sparkling and translucent teardrops fell from midair, and then a huge black shadow swept over. With lightning speed, Princess Odoheim, who was unaware of it, was lifted up. The line of sight was enlarged, and the outline of the black shadow was clearly visible. It was a huge mermaid with a sweet appearance, white skin, and crying with joy. What happened to Shirahoshi? Princess Odoheim swayed her body and swept to Shirahoshi's face, gently wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, and immediately looked through the window at the large sea kings wandering around, and the corners of her eyes flashed. Just now, a pirate called Karib suddenly invaded, and he wanted to take me away by force. The tears in Shirahoshi's eyes fell uncontrollably, and her body curled up. For that disgusting pirate, she had a kind of fear in her soul. Princess Odoheim looked stiff and immediately asked anxiously, "Where did the pirate named Karib go?" Princess Odoheim's tone was cold. She had been rolling in the sea for many years, and she knew how serious the consequences of exposing Shirahoshi's secret as an ancient weapon would be. At that time, whether Dustless could save the mother and daughter was a problem. Let nature take its course. He has already run away. A magnetic voice that was calm but filled with concern resounded, attracting the gazes of Baixing and Princess Aji. Princess Aji frowned, her crystalline eyes filled with doubt. "How did you get in here? Don't tell me you can communicate with them." Pointing at the large sea kings outside the castle, Princess Odoheim was surprised to find that their eyes had turned scarlet. "I had no choice. They refused to let me in, so I had to resort to extreme measures." Dustless shrugged and smiled helplessly. "That's not important." Hearing this, Princess Odoheim shook her head and immediately said worriedly, "Shirahoshi's ability has awakened, and the pirate named Karib saw it with his own eyes. The gold all over the place was probably the result of Karib encountering Shirahoshi when he was secretly stealing. He was frightened and unintentionally awakened the Sea King's ability. He seems to have left Fishman Island." Under the boundless observation hockey, Dustless did not find any trace of him from Fishman Island. Obviously, Karib escaped in advance. "Mother, who is he?" Shirahoshi whispered to Princess Odoheim. Princess Odoheim's face flashed unnaturally and she was extremely embarrassed. More than 10 years ago, she was unfortunately caught by human beings and sent to celestial dragons to be sold as a slave. It was Dustless who bought her. Therefore, Dustless is her master and Princess Odoheim is just a slave. As the daughter of Princess Odoheim, Shirahoshi, to some extent, also belongs to Dustless. In other words, she is also a slave. "I'm your father." Staring at Shirahoshi's huge body, Dustless grinned and his pleasant expression was extraordinarily warm. Dustless's face was full of magnanimity. As for the original Neptune, he was cuckolded by Dustless many years ago and was later killed by him. There is no such person in Shirahoshi's memory. Princess Odoheim blushed when she heard the words and immediately nodded to Shirahoshi. A hurricane came head-on, Dustless was slightly stunned, and immediately he was surprised to find that he was stuffed between two lumps of meat, and the soft touch made him a little dazed. "I don't know when it started, Dustless has been sandwiched between Shirahoshi's two peaks. Cough cough cough. Let me down." Even with the thickness of Dustless's face, his old face was red at the moment, and his voice was a little trembling. "I will not let father go." The huge head shook like a rattle drum. Shirahoshi mercilessly refused Dustless. Not only that, but she squeezed Dustless together even harder. His face was red and his whole body was squeezed in the lumps of meat. Seeing this scene, Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry and immediately promised, "This time I will take you and your present away from the Fishman Island to live in other places." Princess Odoheim also nodded gently to Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi, who was skeptical, let go of Dustless. A pair of shining eyes still circled Dustless. As long as he showed signs of escaping, she would take advantage of the situation to attack. Chapter 9:12. Dustless felt helpless about Shirahoshi. He didn't expect the girl to be so enthusiastic about him. Shirahoshi misses father very much. Princess Otoheim said softly as she looked at Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless gently nodded. He could see the wings of hope in Shirahoshi's eyes. The deep yearning of blood is thicker than water is not like this. But, I'm just a fake. I just said it casually. I didn't expect this little girl to take it seriously. Scratching his head, Dustless said with a headache. What's wrong with that? What are you dissatisfied with? You have a daughter who can control Sea King, don't tell me you still feel wronged. Princess Otoheim said with a roll of her eyes. This is not. Dustless shook his head and immediately stopped thinking about this trivial matter. He said in a deep voice, the Fishman Island is not safe for the time being. The boy named Karib is not a good thing. I am afraid that he will say that Shirahoshi is the ancient weapon Sea King. Pirates hold grudges and Karib is no exception. Since he suffered a loss at Shirahoshi's hands, he will definitely find ways to retaliate. This is the nature of pirates. Using Shirahoshi's identity is the best way to break through. Follow me to Mariehua, it is safe enough. After thinking for a while, Dustless said with certainty. Hearing this, Princess Otoheim shook her head and denied Dustless's idea. She said angrily, that is the headquarters of the world government. Going there is equivalent to setting yourself on fire. So what? I am the world's best defense. Then glancing at Princess Otoheim quietly, Dustless suddenly understood what she was thinking. I advise you not to have any illusions about those fish people. They are just fence-sitters. Seeing Princess Otoheim so persistent on the Fishman Island, Dustless couldn't help but feel speechless. The rioting fish people said that they would cut off her head and send it to Bigu's mom to extinguish Bigu's anger. He didn't expect this woman to be so stubborn. This is my choice. Princess Aji bit her lower lip, and her delicate face tried to hide her calmness. Even so, Dustless could still see her trembling lips. Boom boom boom. At this moment, a group of pitch-black men and horses suddenly attacked, and the ground rumbled as they ran. Princess Aji is there. Don't let her run away. Capture her and offer her to Baigu Mamu in exchange for the peace of Fishman Island. That's right, it's her honor to die for our Fishman Island. This is the merit of several lifetimes. All kinds of dirty words stimulated Princess Aji, causing her to clench her fists tightly, her eyes brimming with despair. That's the best. Seeing this, Dustless chuckled in his heart. This was the only way for her to see reality clearly. Why are you treating Mother like this? She has spent so much effort on Fishman Island for more than 10 years, and now you are actually forcing Mother to throw her life away. Shirahoshi, with her huge body blocking in front of Princess Aji, said loudly. It would have been fine if she hadn't said anything, but once she did, it immediately attracted countless verbal sparks. A little kid who has not seen the world, you know nothing. By the way, Princess Shirahoshi is the biological daughter of Princess Aji. If we give her to Baigu Mamu together, the big thief will definitely forgive us. That's right. That's reasonable. The greedy eyes fell on Shirahoshi, and this group of mobs shouted, and their ecstatic expressions were as if they saw the savior, and all of them ran towards Shirahoshi with various weapons in their hands. Things that don't know life and death. His eyes emitted a cold light, and Wu Chen's murderous intent surged. The powerful haki hidden in his body slowly overflowed, and the space splashed with faint ripples. He was about to use Haushika haki to kill this group of people, but an unexpected afterimage swept into the crowd and started killing. Puchi! Puchi! The rioting murlocs didn't even have time to scream before they were brutally killed. Their bodies were covered with bloody scars, and their flesh was lacerated as they breathed their last. Sure enough, women can't be provoked, and the destructive power they create is unimaginable. A group of idiots, they deserve it. The Black Shadow and this group of rookie fishmen may look down on them, but Dustless saw it clearly. The figure who killed the fishmen was Princess Aji. After Dustless's training for a while, her strength was quite good. At least it was easy for her to kill these ordinary fishmen. You want to kill me, that's okay. Princess Aji's cold eyes looked around at the remaining fishmen and she said coldly, now you even have the idea of Shirahoshi, a shameless person has a bottom line. It seems that I was too naive before. Then she jumped into the crowd and began to kill mercilessly. This group of fishmen is not worthy of sympathy. Can you skillfully control the ability of Sea King Shirahoshi? Dustless turned to Shirahoshi and asked with hope in his eyes. As the name implies, Sea King is the king of sea kings. He can summon and control sea kings with a size of tens of thousands of meters, and there are hundreds or even thousands of them. Besieged by thousands of sea kings with a length of up to 10,000 meters or even larger and longer, anyone will die. Hearing this, Shirahoshi tried to communicate with the sea kings, and shook her head after a while. She just awakened by accident, and the number of sea kings that she can control for the time being can be counted on one hand. All of this still needs time to practice. Chapter 9:13. His bright eyes dimmed slightly, and the light in Dustless's eyes disappeared. All this is indeed a bit early. After all, Shirahoshi has just awakened, and it is a bit difficult to force her to control the Sea King now. Father, am I still useless? Tears welled up in Bai Xing's eyes as she spoke in a self-reproachful manner. You think too much. This is not the reason why you are useless. The time is still short and the future is still long. Dustless showed a comforting smile and immediately explained, it is also an accident that you can suddenly awaken the Sea King's ability. You can reach the point of perfection if you practice slowly in the future. Bai Xing smiled happily when she heard this. She nodded her head like a chick. I will definitely work hard. Dustless also showed a knowing smile and then turned his head to look. The castle, which was clean before, was bloody, and there were corpses everywhere. Among the corpses, only Princess Odoheim was left standing. I plan to stay on Fishman Island for a few more days. Staring at the back of Princess Odoheim, Dustless said thoughtfully. Fishman Island avoids the world government and Marine's eyes and ears. It is most suitable to use this place to exercise Shirahoshi's ability. It is okay to rest for a few days. Time flies and 3 days slipped away in a blink of an eye. In the bustling streets of dresses, the flow of people was moving and couples dressed in revealing clothes strolled peacefully on the island, with happy smiles, and the harmonious atmosphere made people sink uncontrollably. Boom. Inside Dressrosa's palace, a dull gunshot suddenly sounded and everyone was stunned. Looking up, the doubts on everyone's faces disappeared. There was their king, Doflamingo's palace, a member of the 7 warlords of the sea, where the pirates gathered. Dressrosa was able to avoid the harassment of pirates over the years because of him. Inside the palace, the figure kneeling on the ground was scared out of his wits. It was Karib who came out of Fishman Island. At this moment he was sweating and his heart was beating fast. Turning his head and looking at the hole in the wall behind him, he couldn't help but shiver. What did you say? Repeat what you said just now. If you dare to lie to me, you'll be chopped into pieces. That would be the result of God's blessing. Doflamingo, who was sitting on the throne, said coldly. Then he played with the exquisite gun in his hand. The black barrel of the gun was aimed at Karib's head. I wouldn't dare to lie even if you beat me to death. Karib was so scared that he repeatedly kowtowed. Soon after, he said with great certainty, I saw it with my own eyes. The princess of the Fishman Island, Shirahoshi, summoned a large group of sea kings, and they were at least 20,000 meters in size. Not only that, those sea kings that normally don't have any intelligence seem to have been given a mind of their own. They all unconditionally obey the orders of that Shirahoshi. No matter what Karib described to his heart's content. As long as he could fool Doflamingo, he would be able to escape after swindling wealth and glory. There was no need to care about anything else. After all, even if Doflamingo knew that he was lying to him, Karib would run off to some unknown island to enjoy his life. Are there any experts on Fishman Island for the time being? Doflamingo asked craftily, his eyes burning with the luster of ambition. Experts? Karib was stunned when he heard the words. He immediately remembered that Dustless had accidentally spied on him. When he was about to expose him, he immediately remembered Doflamingo's ruthless and cruel treatment. He flattered, No, absolutely no. I can guarantee it with my head. By the way, only the Straw Hat Pirates appeared during the War of the Crowns. Anyway, he would run away after getting Doflamingo's benefits. You can go now. I will definitely send someone to deliver what I promised you. Doflamingo waved his hand and impatiently asked him to leave. Karib bowed and respectfully retreated. Crick. The door behind Doflamingo was pushed open, and a short, sloppy man walked out, swaying as he walked. It was the second in command of the Donquaquade family, Treble. Young master, that kid must be lying to us? Aren't ancient weapons all machines? That Pluto is one. Treble's eyebrows were full of unkindness. That's not necessarily true. Pluto is a machine, but there's no rule that Sea King is also a machine. Doflamingo's eyes flashed and said, "No matter what that Princess Shirahoshi is, she can control a sea king with a volume of 20,000 meters. It sounds like there's no limit." Speaking of this, Doflamingo's tone stopped and he was a little sluggish. There are thousands of sea kings all over the world and they are everywhere in the sea. If they can control sea kings, the world is just around the corner. No matter what, Fishman Island is worth a trip. Doflamingo changed the topic and said decisively, "If Princess Shirahoshi really has the ability that Karib said, it's naturally a good thing. Even if she doesn't, it's not a big deal. At most, it's just a waste of time. Anyway, Doflamingo has been bored recently. This young master, although I also want to go to Fishman Island, there's a big problem right now." Chapter 9:14. Hearing Treble's words, Doflamingo couldn't help but feel angry. Every time he was ambitious to do something, all kinds of embarrassing things always pop up, and he was sad as if he had eaten a fly. "Big problem? Tell me clearly." With a dark bronze face, Doflamingo said in an extremely displeased tone. Treble's sloppy face solidified, glanced at Doflamingo and said cautiously, "About a day ago, the Bigumam pirates disappeared, and the destination seems to be the Fishman Island." Hearing this, Doflamingo's violent temper disappeared, and the surging hostility also quickly converged. His eyes quickly changed and a fog suddenly rose in his heart. What is Bigumam going to the Fishman Island for? Scratching his head, Doflamingo was puzzled. Bigumam doesn't even want the territory now, and it is suspicious to go directly to the Fishman Island. Especially in this sensitive period, Doflamingo is looking for the legendary Sea King. As a result, Bigumam went to the Fishman Island. It would be strange if he didn't think about it. Call the cadres and go to the Fishman Island together. We can't let Bigumam take the lead. Gritting his teeth, the last hesitation was finally replaced by greed. After getting Shirahoshi, the whole world is at your fingertips, not to mention Bigumam. Then remembering the shadow left by Bigumam a few years ago, Doflamingo seriously said, "Follow the Bigumam pirates and take the opportunity to seize that Shirahoshi." The palace of the Fishman Island collapsed and was annihilated. Dustless and the other two temporarily lived in the castle where Shirahoshi usually lived, surrounded by groups of sea kings. Even if the rebellious mobs wanted to catch Princess Odoheim, they looked at the pirates with a size of 10,000 meters and slipped away. Although it was only a few days, Shirahoshi's talent in controlling sea kings was improving rapidly. In just a few days it was not enough to reach the point of perfection. Under the careful guidance of Dustless, it was also different from the original. The number of sea kings under control also gradually increased, 40 or 50, 60 or 70, 100. The number is constantly increasing, and with the passage of time, it is only a matter of time before she becomes the king of sea kings. "Thank you, father." A joyous and excited laughter sounded in his ears. He shifted his gaze and saw that it was Shirahoshi who was laughing happily. In the water, she swayed her elegant body excitedly like a lively child. "This is your own talent. I'm just guiding the power out of your body. The credit is yours," Dustless calmly replied. Soon after, he looked at the lump of meat beneath his feet and couldn't help but feel speechless. At this moment he was rather embarrassed as he stood on the Jade Maiden Peak. His head swayed along with it and he felt extremely dizzy. "Alright, that's all for today." Dustless suddenly felt a wave of emptiness and exhaustion. Noticing that it was not too late, he turned around and left. The Sea King's ability was something that could be slowly trained. There was no benefit in being overly enthusiastic, and it might even lead to unexpected situations. Inside the castle, Princess Odoheim had been waiting for a long time. She had prepared delicious dishes in advance. She stood at the entrance of the castle, waiting for the arrival of Dustless and Shirahoshi. This gentle appearance was the complete opposite of her previous cold and harsh self. "You're finally here." After a while, a huge mermaid suddenly appeared in her eyes. Only then did Princess Aji let out a sigh of relief. These days those rioters were always targeting them. Her heart was always restless. Boom boom boom, just as he was about to eat and drink, a series of dull collisions attracted the attention of Dustless. His observation hockey also searched for the source of the turmoil. After a while, he sighed and began to talk to himself. "It seems that I was born to be tired. Trouble has come again. But this time it's also good. I've completely solved the big problem of Bigumam." Princess Odoheim's face wrinkled when she heard the words, and a worried look appeared on her face. She raised her eyes and happened to see Dustless casting a comforting look at her. You mother and daughter can stay here with peace of mind. Leave Big Umam to me." His eyes fell on Shirahoshi's face, and seeing her nervous face, Dustless grinned, giving people a feeling of a cool breeze, and the faint arc of his mouth was like a panacea, and Shirahoshi's tense nerves also relaxed. "People always have to earn their own living. You should be able to protect your mother, right, Shirahoshi?" Floating in front of Shirahoshi, Dustless smiled and encouraged her. The tone was mixed with the magic of seduction, and Shirahoshi couldn't help but nod. When she came back to her senses, even she herself was at a loss. "It doesn't matter, believe in yourself, and remember to leave me some food, especially you, Shirahoshi." Princess Otoheim stared at the gradually disappearing back with a complicated gaze. She found that she had been worried for a while. The so-called strongest Whitebeard was destroyed by Dustless, let alone this group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Boom! At the same time, a huge figure jumped to the ground. Her huge body made the whole ground tremble and splashed a lot of smoke and dust. The huge figure was looming in the dust, and disgusting liquid dripped from the corners of her mouth. This vague outline was one of the Xianxia for emperors. Big Umam. Chapter 9:15. Obviously, it was the first time she came to the strange place of the Fishman Island. Big Mom looked around curiously, then opened her mouth and a fishy smell came out. What the hell is going on with this island? Why is there not even a ghost? Baigu Mamu rolled her huge eyes and roared unhappily. The air waves spit out are very corrosive, and even the air in the atmosphere can be corroded and annihilated, forming a large vacuum area filled with suffocating danger. Don't tell me that Louis South has slipped away in advance. Big Gumam's face was full of bad luck. They were busy for a long time. The entire Big Gumam pirates rushed here without stopping. As the protagonist, Dustless was nowhere to be seen. In the end, it was all in vain. Return. After a while, Big Mama waved her hand impatiently and went to the pirate ship angrily. Every time she took a step, the ground cracked, and even because of the ferocious force, the whole battleship was stepped on by Big Mama and made a creaking sound. The members of the Big Mom pirates looked at each other, and they were all sweating, fearing that Big Mom would step on the entire battleship. Shoo! The dim sky shone brightly for a moment, countless flashes poured down, and the entire sky was dyed golden. This sudden scene caused the whole ship of the Big Mom pirates to be sluggish. "Get off the ship, someone is attacking." Perceiving the sharpness of the light bullet, the light that can easily penetrate steel made Big Mom's heart cold. Under the light of this destruction, it only takes a simple move, the Big Mom pirates that she has painstakingly built for many years, I'm afraid that there will be no more than 1 in 10. Most of the pirates who were there to make up the numbers would die. Yasukani no Magatama. Many light bullets, like the sand of the Ganges, unscrupulously devoured the lives of the members of the Big Mom pirates. In the blink of an eye, most of them were ruthlessly cut open and hundreds of scorched holes were gouged out of their bodies. In just a few seconds, more than half of the Big Mom pirates were killed or injured. Bastard! Glaring angrily at Dustless, Baiguma's eyes widened as he spat out a strange ripple from his mouth. The target of his attack was Dustless, who was floating in the air. What the hell is this? Dustless frowned as a special gust of wind swept past him. Suddenly, he felt as if his right arm was made of water. Strangely, it started to drip slowly. No. This is melting. Acid? Dustless's bright eyes flashed with surprise. This was the first time he had encountered such a strange ability. Your ability seems to be able to melt and corrode everything that comes into contact with your ability? Poochie! Dustless raised his hand and chopped off the right arm that was about to swallow his whole body without hesitation. His expression was incomparably calm. Ah! As expected of a Marine Admiral, you are unexpectedly smart. Baigu's mother opened her mouth and laughed. Immediately, she looked at the corpses on the ground and her smile was instantly replaced by a dark haze. Her green face twitched. She had lost all the money that she had saved up for many years. Outrageous. This is interest. Staring at Dustless's melted right arm, Baigu's mother said with a smile. Interest? Are you an idiot old woman dreaming? A merciless taunt made Baigu's mother angry, and then she saw Dustless's right arm surging, and countless mysterious liquid bodies emerged, full of majestic vitality. Immediately, in a few seconds, a new arm was condensed. How is this possible? Wiping her eyes, Baigu's mother was suddenly dumbfounded, staring at the intact Dustless. This was beyond her previous understanding and completely contrary to the characteristics of the enemy she had fought in the past. This kind of ability is not something that a mere human should have. Are you daydreaming? The ghostly voice came suddenly. Baigu's mother was shining, and she suddenly turned around, but she was hit back with a ferocious kick. Ka ka ka. Due to the strength being too strong, Baigu's mom's face completely collapsed. Lightspeed kick. Baigu's mother, who was caught off guard, flew out like a cannonball. Facing this unprecedented strength, it was difficult for her to stop her body. Boom boom boom, the ground was pulled into a long gully which was hundreds of meters long. Baigu's mother, together with the mountain in the distance, collapsed and buried in it. However, as one of the 4 emperors, Baigu's mother was definitely not so easy to deal with. Ao. The roar full of endless indignation swept across the sky, and the roar of the awakened ancient beast could be heard from a distance of 1 kilometer away. Shio. It was obviously a huge body, and it should belong to the type that was not good at moving. However, at this moment, Baigu's mother's speed was beyond imagination, and only a faint afterimage could be captured. Looking for death? Idiot. With a sneer, the chakra in Dustless's body rapidly rotated, and it was full of majestic vitality. At this moment, the sky suddenly became extremely dark, and the dark sky was filled with the oppression of death. Baigu's mother's pupils shrunk and she looked up, only to see countless mahogany falling from the sky. Celestial Method, Bright God Gate. Chapter 9:16. Baigu Mamu's old face showed signs of turning into a black pot. The scene of a meteor shower was beautiful and touching, but the sky was inexplicably raining a group of deadly wood rain. She really couldn't be happy. Especially when she sensed the power of the bright God Gate falling from the sky to suppress the whole world. Baigu Mamu's heart was even colder from head to toe. This kind of godlike consummate skill was simply cheating. This was a foul roar. Baigu Mamu opened her mouth, revealing fangs that were not inferior to the sawtooth of a shark. Baigu Mamu would not wait for death. She aimed at the sky and roared violently. The acid that was more powerful than the one that corroded Dustless broke out of her mouth. Ripples splashed in the void, and the invisible impact swept out like a dragon hurricane. This guy's ability is not simple. It can actually corrode the bright God Gate technique. The corner of Dustless's eyes widened, and he said in surprise. Looking up at the sky, one could be surprised to find that the thick red roundwood was constantly shrinking and being corroded quickly. The redwood that was originally thicker than a person was like a thumb, but what can be done is always limited. Dustless immediately shook his head and said. His expression was extremely calm. Baigu Mamu could only corrode a small part of it. Most of the red roundwood still fell mercilessly. It was already commendable that she could do this, and it was worthy of praise. Boom, boom, boom. Where Baigu Mamu was, a large amount of smoke and dust splashed. The empty land was filled by the bright God Gate, and turned into an endless mangrove forest. She actually avoided it. Her ability to escape is not bad. Looking as far as the eyes could see, the interior of the smoke and dust soaring into the sky, Dustless's clear eyes could be seen clearly. There was no one inside and there was no trace of Baigu Mamu's back at all. It was silent. Obviously, at the critical moment just now, Baigu Mamu had escaped the suppression of the bright God Gate, and escaped. However, at this moment, the ground where Dustless stood turned into a black shadow unexpectedly. It was extremely dark, and the outline reflected on the ground was obviously a huge human body. The most eye-catching thing was her fangs that could tear steel apart. Drip drip drip. Drops of unknown green liquid dripped onto the ground, emitting white smoke and corroding the ground mercilessly. After a while, the gigantic shadow finally revealed her ferocious appearance. Her fist, which was a few times bigger than a human head, was raised up high. Her strength was so strong that it could easily destroy a mountain. Armament hockey hardening. The flesh fist instantly turned into a deep dark black, and the power increased by 3 points. Not only that, this fist covered with armament hockey also overflowed with a lot of boiling liquid. Disappear for this old mother. He glanced at Dustless, who was motionless like a mountain, with extreme hatred. Carrying Baigu Mamu's resentment, his fist blasted out. His target was Dustless, who was motionless. Although Baigu Mamu was the only woman among the Yonko, her strength was unquestionable. Perhaps it was because her back was facing Baigu Mam, but she didn't see the slight smile on Dustless's lips. His indifferent eyes obviously didn't put Baigu Mam in his eyes. Everything seemed to go smoothly. Puchi. The immovable Dustless was penetrated in an instant. The fist went through his abdomen, leaving a huge hole. There was no doubt that he was going to die. Baigu's mom was wild with joy and almost danced with joy. However, after a few seconds of joy, that strange feeling made her eyes glaze over. It was as if her soul had been sucked out and she was at a loss. Even though his fist had passed through Dustless's body, it was unable to shake him. In fact, it didn't even touch the edges of Dustless's body. It felt more like his fist had struck empty air. It's impolite not to reciprocate. It's time for me to retaliate. Completely ignoring the fist inserted in his abdomen, Dustless's body strangely floated in the air. Just now he actually used Kamui to completely ignore it. Therefore, Baigu Mamu did not attack Dustless from beginning to end. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Between his fingers, high-density light speed condensed, aimed at Baigu Mamu's right eye, and immediately shot out mercilessly. The fragile part of the eye has zero chance of defending against the impact of the beam. Laser. The straight speed of light whistled out and disappeared in a flash. The dazzling brilliance made people unable to open their eyes. Baigu Mamu quickly closed her eyes. In the face of this devil-like beam, she was helpless and unlucky. Puchi. Even if closing the eyes can play a certain defensive role, the right eye still turned into a scorched hole. Baigu Mamu gritted her teeth in pain. The hysterical posture revealed the madness of perishing together. Dustless completely enraged her. The rough big hand stroked the right eye in disbelief. Even if both eyes were destroyed by Dustless, it was actually not a big deal. After all, the ability of observation hockey was more reliable than the eyes. However, the most unacceptable thing for Baigu Mamu was that she was perfectly fine with 4 limbs, but she was crippled by wuxian. Moreover, she was gloriously turned into a one-eyed man. This was unbearable. Chapter 9:17. Twitching her arm, touching her burnt right eye back and forth, Baigu Mam tried her best to hide her calmness, but even so, the squirming corners of her mouth could still be seen that she was in a state of rage at the moment. As long as someone dared to step on the door, they could instantly detonate this blazing volcano. There was no need for a big flame, a spark could ignite a prairie fire. No matter when, there was the existence of courting death. Yo. Don't show such a man-eating expression. You should thank me for turning you into a one-eyed dragon. Some people want to ask me to do this, but it's impossible. This is the treatment of a regular customer, a luxurious VIP treatment. The untimely ridicule added fuel to the fire, full of endless sarcasm and contempt. Looking closely, it was Dustless who deserved a beating. The joking expression and frivolous tone provoked Baigu Mam's reason. The smiling expression was looking forward to looking at Baigu Mam, who was about to go berserk. Obviously, it was deliberately provoking Baigu Mam. Clenching her huge iron fist tightly, Baigu Mam almost vomited blood when she heard the words. The meaning of these words seemed to be that she had to thank Dustless for his kindness. Doesn't that mean that you destroyed my right eye, and I have to thank you for your greatness? Baigu Mam's face was red. To be honest, it was the first time she had seen such a shameless person. Do you need me to sing praises for you again and praise your great deeds? At the end, Baigu Mam's voice increased dozens of times, and the whole person almost jumped up exaggeratedly. This old woman is full of energy, and she can live for 20 or 30 years. Dustless couldn't help but feel a chill. Baigu Mam's appearance was extremely ugly. Now, this appearance of killing into the awe-inspiring, even more perfectly showed her ugliness. The fat face trembled, and the eyes were completely squeezed into a line. The face was covered with all kinds of spots, and the whole person's face was almost purple. In Dustless's mind, Blackbeard suddenly appeared. The two of them were the most suitable match, and no one was picky about who. Grumble. Of course, this time it was not hunger, but after seeing the appearance of Baigu Mam, the whole person no longer felt empty, and the blood was revived in an instant. In his life, it was the first time that he was disgusted to the point of being full. Boom boom boom. The violent vibration pulled back Dustless's thoughts, and the particles on the ground trembled slowly. Looking as far as the eye could see, it was Bigu's mom who had flipped out. A transparent, viscous liquid was seeping out from her body. It was endless like a boundless ocean. Chi, the ground that was engulfed and corroded by the liquid, would emit white waves of air. Soon after, it would die completely and turn into a pitch-black land of death. Baigu Mamu herself was not affected. Even if she was bathed in the acid, she could still move freely. Baigu Mamu, who was angry, was obviously going to go all out. The corpses of her own people on the ground were all corroded by her. Buzz buzz buzz. The majestic breath broke out of the body, and the monstrous Haushikuhaki danced wildly in the sky, and the void was crushed by the momentum of the supreme hegemon, showing a distorted shape. Not only that, this Haushikuhaki also played a propulsive role, and the acid, which was originally in the state of stagnant water, suddenly rolled like waves. It was like an ocean wave that flowed without end, and in the end, it became a great wave that covered the sky and covered the earth, intending to swallow Dustless along with his bones. Once he was affected by it, then not even his corpse would remain, and it would absolutely be an extremely miserable ending. It's really surprising. The so-called Yonko for emperors is just like this. Seeing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with deep disappointment. He was looking forward to the performance of Baigu Mamu, but he did not expect to play such a plain and bad show. In the final analysis, you Yonko for emperors are also a group of ordinary people with ordinary flesh. Forcing you to come up with a gorgeous show as my idea is too simple. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, the surging acid waves would completely annihilate Dustless. Baigu Mamu was very excited when she saw this scene, and her remaining eye was enlarged to see all this. Her bloodshot eyes were filled with endless longing. Towards Dustless, Baigu Mamu had a kind of hatred that went deep into her soul. She hoped that Dustless would disappear forever without leaving a corpse behind. This island? There's no way it's destroyed. Anyway, it has nothing to do with me. I was just passively counterattacking. Naturally, all the faults were pushed to Baigu Mamu. Dustless condensed the majestic chakra, and the explosive energy fluctuations in his body were enough to crush all creatures. Dustless spread out his hands and hugged the sky. At the moment when groups of acid were about to swallow him, the chakra that had been gathered for a long time burst out with full force, and there was no need to hide it. Super Shinra Tensei. The strength of a ninjutsu was completely dependent on the user's own chakra evaluation. Dustless was a different kind of jubi, and the chakra in his body could be said to be infinite. The high-density chakra that he could mobilize was as much as the sea, and the entire Fishman Island was attacked by the Super Shinra Tensei. Bang bang bang. With a loud bang, the entire Fishman Island's geographical environment was instantly rewritten, or it could be said that it was sent to the ancient era by Dustless. All the buildings on the island collapsed and disappeared, and the wind and sand were everywhere, as if they had come to a desert. At the center of the battle between Dustless and Baigu Mamu, a deep pit with a radius of 10 kilometers appeared. As for the huge acid waves just now, they evaporated instantly. Chapter 9:18. Looking down from the sky, a huge crater that seemed to have been hit by a meteorite almost affected the entire Fishman Island. It was incomparably hideous, occupying almost a quarter of the area of the Fishman Island. Under one blow, the Fishman Island, which had a history of thousands of years or even longer, completely entered the end. The geographical environment of the Fishman Island was ruthlessly and coldly destroyed, and it was only a matter of time before it was swept into the garbage dump of history. Not dead. A whisper broke the dead atmosphere, proving that someone was still alive. Looking as far as the eye could see, a figure covered with blood was buried in the sand. Even though she was infinitely close to death, she was still breathing weakly and was able to struggle at death's door. However, from the wounds all over her body, her death was close at hand. You should still be able to move. Whitebeard, 100 Beast Kaido, and Red Hair Shanks are all extremely durable. You shouldn't be so fragile. Dustless said frankly. He was convinced that Bigu's mom would not be so useless. The strength of the Yonko, 4 emperors, is not only incredible, but their endurance is also beyond imagination. When they were in the Marine headquarters, the old Whitebeard was cut open several times, and even his heart was crushed, but he still showed the power to destroy the world. Even if Big Ma is not as good as Whitebeard, her endurance is extremely strong. Cough. Sure enough, Big Ma's corpse coughed violently, raised her head, revealing a face full of pustules, and her cold eyes were locked on Dustless. Damn, it hurts. The tide-like pain surged all over her body, and Big Ma was in so much pain that she wanted to die. Almost all her ribs were broken. It was a miracle that she could still stand up. Her ferocious and gloomy eyes looked at Dustless, and her murderous eyes were full of twisted hatred. She couldn't wait to turn Dustless into a stick. Are you still going to struggle? You are also one of the Yonko, 4 emperors. I want to give you a decent death. Let go so you can suffer less physical pain. Reading the hatred in Bigu's eyes, Dustless said out of kindness, after death, I will make you into a puppet. This is also a blessing. However, Baigu Mamu obviously would not agree to Dustless's good intentions. She was the kind of stubborn person who would rather die than surrender. Moreover, Dustless wanted to make her into a puppet, which was even more impossible. Dream on. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Clenching his fists, Baigu Mamu said resolutely. As one of the Yonko, 4 emperors, everyone has a last resort. Forget it, you're going to die anyway. I didn't mind euthanizing you, but since you like to die in pain so much, I'll reluctantly fulfill your wish. Seeing that Baigu Mamu was so insensible, Dustless's expression gradually became cold, and chakra with the nature of disaster surrounded his body. Even his deep eyes have undergone amazing changes. Looking at Baigu Mamu, she instinctively looked back and felt that the god of death was smiling at her, at this time in the other direction. It was so dangerous just now. If we arrived a little later, we would have been destroyed by that force. Bastard, when did such a big shot appear on the small Fishman Island? In an obscure port, the Don Quixote pirates secretly landed. Looking back, the pirate ship they were on had become a pile of scrap metal. Just now, a majestic impact directly destroyed their pirate ship. If it weren't for the fact that they were already close to the port, they would have been buried in the depths of the sea if they were a little late. Many of the flamingo pirates had just walked through the gates of hell. Young master, are we going to retreat? The fluctuations of the two fighting just now. Treble's tone stagnated with a little fear and fear. Not only him, but all the members of the Don Quixote pirates looked at the northern sky in unison. The fighting fluctuations there could be clearly felt even tens of kilometers away. A group of Don Quixote pirates were sweating, and their hearts were in their throats. This level of war is obviously beyond the level of an admiral. Doflamingo was also feeling guilty, and his forehead was covered with crystal drops of sweat visible to the naked eye. His eyes flashed with fear. He guessed right, the initiator was Baigu Mamu who came before him. No, now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. While they are fighting, let's take the opportunity to capture Shirahoshi. Greed finally prevailed over reason, and Doflamingo's tone was unquestionable. His cold eyes then looked around, and the members of the Don Quixote pirates all shut up. If they irritate him, they may be killed by the angry Doflamingo. You don't have to worry. As a leader, not only must he use force to oppress, but he must also know how to use force. His voice was lowered, and all the hostility in his words disappeared. After getting Shirahoshi, we will be the overlords of this world, and you will all be heroes. Follow me to look down on this world. Doflamingo raised his arms and shouted, and his tone was full of endless temptation. The cadres of the Don Quixote pirates immediately became hesitant. In life, everyone lives for fame and fortune. Chapter 9:19. The nature of pirates is naturally greedy. Doflamingo covets Shirahoshi's ability and wants to use it as a benchmark to rule the world. After all, he has too many enemies. But the fishman named Shirahoshi will definitely not be captured. What if she orders the Sea Kings to attack us? Don't forget that this is the Fishman Island. There are countless large Sea Kings wandering around. Maybe we will turn from prey to hunters. I believe no one in this world will sit still and wait for death. Doflamingo's subordinate Pika said. It's barely acceptable on the island, but in this vast ocean, the overlord is definitely the Sea King. A Sea King with a physique of tens of thousands of meters is enough to tear up all prey. The members of the Don Quixote pirates were silent and looked at Doflamingo. Since this boss intends to plot against Shirahoshi, he must come up with a feasible plan. There is no need to worry. Before all this, I have calculated it in advance. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face was full of confidence, and the corner of his mouth raised a confident arc, and he said in a deep voice, "The mermaid named Shirahoshi is indeed dangerous, but she is not invincible. I heard from Caribou that Shirahoshi's mother, Princess Odoheim, loves her very much." Doflamingo smiled gloomily. The meaning is self-evident. Obviously, he wants to capture Princess Odoheim, threaten Shirahoshi, and let her obediently wait for death. The means are a bit despicable, but there is no other way who let them be pirates. Time flies. Dustless and Biguma finally reached the end. Can you still hold on? You and the strongest creature, 100 Beast Kaido, can fight. Wu Qin stood alone, staring at 100 Beast Kaido in front of him. Although Kaido was in a sorry state, he was still able to stand up. His eyes flashed with surprise. Taking a closer look, Baigu Mamu was already riddled with holes. Even so, her face was still rosy and her endurance was quite strong. Even with her calm appearance, it was not a problem for her to continue fighting for a few hours. Oh! His huge pupils enlarged as he laughed sinisterly. You want to kill me? You can't do that. Mocking Dustless to her heart's content, Bai Gu Ma Mu was unscrupulous. In fact, she was already a lamp that had run out of oil. Now, it was equivalent to the last moments of her life. However, she forced herself to hold on. In fact, she was dragging Dustless to the grave with her. Looks like your unrealistic thoughts haven't faded away. Dustless frowned slightly. He sensed the crazy aura around Bai Gu Ma Mu's body. He involuntarily shook his head. His expression immediately became stern as he whistled out like a ray of light shooting through the sun. It came and went without a trace, and one could only catch a faint afterimage, disappearing in a flash. It was wishful thinking to think that human eyes could keep up with the speed of light. With a snort of xianxia, Bai Gu Ma Mu simply closed her eyes, the observation haki spread out, and the traceless Dustless suddenly appeared in her perception. Found it? After a while, Bai Gu Ma Mu, who locked on Dustless's movement, opened her left eye, and her whole body was filled with terrible hostility. Her eyes were filled with deadly danger. The black iron fist covered with acid blasted out, and the air shook, and the destructive wave eroded toward Dustless. Photons floated and condensed into Dustless's thin body. Staring at the oncoming fist, Dustless's eyebrows couldn't help but raise, and a transparent fist was clearly visible. A ray of light emerged from the palm of his hand, and it immediately compressed rapidly, turning into a laser sword, revealing the sharpness of cutting iron like mud. Kusanagi Cloud Sword. Dustless looked cold, and the sword in his hand fell. A golden afterimage was drawn in the air, and the transparent acid fist was penetrated by this ray of sharp light. Puchi. The acid fist was immediately torn apart by the sword pressure and split into two halves, and immediately turned into countless transparent acid. It's actually broken? Bai Gu Ma Mu was surprised, and her absent-minded eyes were a little sluggish. Her proud move was so easily broken, and she felt powerless from the bottom of her heart. Her only remaining left eye was also dim. The bone marrow in her whole body seemed to have been sucked dry, and Bai Gu Ma Mu was particularly weak and haggard. Her original black hair instantly turned white, and her whole body swayed, as if she was mercilessly abandoned by the world. Puchi. There was a kind of piercing pain in her heart, and the burning pain spread to her limbs and bones. Bai Gu Ma Mu opened her eyes and looked down, and her heart was pierced through by a golden sword. A thin and weak body was reflected on the ground, and her hair was messy in the weeds, giving people a feeling that she was particularly free and easy. The initiator who gave Bai Gu Ma Mu a fatal blow was surprisingly the indifferent Dustless. The sharpness of the Kusanagi Cloud Sword crushed her heart, and not only that, the scorching light was incomparably hot, mercilessly destroying Bai Gu Ma Mu's internal organs and rapidly reducing her vitality. Time is unforgiving. You are already old, and this world is no longer suitable for you. Along with your past glory, now vanish into thin air. Bai Gu Ma Mu. After saying that, Dustless slowly pulled out the Kusanagi Cloud Sword, and one could clearly see that Bai Gu Ma Mu's chest was pierced through by a large hole, and her internal organs were all destroyed, and she was completely dead. The invincible big pirate of a generation fell just like that. Chapter 920. The destruction of her heart also means that this person has come to an end, and her life has come to an end. Put on. Bai Gu Mam, who was emptied, fell to the ground. Her eyes were unwilling, and she looked blankly at Dustless, who was looking down at her. Bai Gu Mam wanted to stand up and fight, but she was powerless. She knew that her floating life was about to be completely stabilized. You guy. Bai Gu Mam's eyes widened, and she used the last remaining time to recall the battle just now. About a few hours had passed, but she had been in a state of complete defeat, and she had been suppressed and beaten violently. This guy is obviously a god in human clothes. I can't beat him at all. Bai Gu Mam muttered to herself. Although her tone was full of unwillingness, she couldn't help but be convinced. The gap between her and Dustless was so big, like a giant and a baby in swaddling clothes. There was no extra strength to resist. Is this a human? Not at all. It is obviously a god in human skin sent by God to go against her. This is simply cheating. The two are completely different, and there is no comparison at all. Just now it was not so much a battle, it was better to say that Dustless has been playing with her to pass the boring time. However, listening to what you mean, it seems that you want to make my body into a puppet, and use me to deter the group of pirates in the New World? It's really a despicable means. Bai Gu Ma Mu used the last of her strength to say in a trembling voice. There was a touch of carefreeness in her words. Even if I die, I will not let you succeed. After that, Baigu Mam overflowed a lot of green acid and corroded her body. Seeing this, Dustless frowned slightly, and after thinking for a while, he stretched his brows again. Don't be mistaken, although I care about your body, I don't have to get it. Glancing at Baigu Mam, Dustless felt a little sleepy, and then sat on a clean stone casually, looking at her who was gradually corroded by acid, and his tone was unusually cold. You are just a harmless pawn. It is good if you can be used. If you can't be used, there is no harm in it. Impossible. Baigu's mom immediately denied Dustless's statement loudly and said affirmatively, You must want to use my reputation and the people's scruples about the 4 emperors to achieve some unknown purpose. Although it was just a simple and baseless conjecture, Baigu Mamu was very sure that no matter what the reason was, Dustless taking her body was definitely not a good thing. Don't think too highly of yourself. I'll repeat myself one last time. You're just a harmless chess piece. Even that Doflamingo guy is more useful than you. In short, you're just a dispensable pawn, Dustless mocked coldly. This fat idiot really overestimated himself. Ayo ayo ayo, a heaven-shaking roar suddenly sounded out from the distance. Looking up, Zhao Fu saw a few 10,000-meter-long sea kings roaring, giving off boundless killing intent. What happened? Dustless frowned when he noticed the sea king's abnormality. The first person he thought of was Shirahoshi. Good chance go to hell. Seeing that Dustless was distracted, Baigu's mom's eyes lit up. Her body stood up strangely. Her body was full of acid and it pressed on Dustless like a mountain. Reckless thing. Noticing that the sky suddenly turned dark, Dustless's face was full of hostility. He looked up at Baigu's mom's body that was about to fall, and he immediately condensed an ugly black iron rod in his hand. Whoosh! The iron rod hit Baigu's mom's abdomen. Her body collapsed in an instant and disappeared strangely. She would definitely die if she was hit by the black rod supported by the yin-yang escape. After a few seconds, Dustless walked toward the castle where Shirahoshi and Princess Otoji were. At this moment the castle. No, perhaps it could not be called a castle anymore. It was surrounded by ruins. There were fragments everywhere. The previous castle had disappeared. Jia. There is really such an incredible ability in the world. It seems that Caribou Kid did not lie to me, but this kind of top-secret information can't be known to outsiders. I will kill that kid when I go back. Doflamingo smiled gloomily and proudly. He looked at Shirahoshi and the giant sea king behind her. His eyes were full of fanaticism. He seemed to have seen the future of the king of the world. His eyes were shining. There was also a graceful woman beside him. She had bright and dazzling golden hair. Her facial features were perfect. Her every move exuded a mature charm. She was very charming. The only pitiful thing was that at this moment, there were 2 lines of tears in the beautiful woman's crystal eyes. Behind her, there were many subordinates of Flamingo. Mother. Looking at Princess Otoji who was captured as a hostage, Shirahoshi's nose was sour. She looked anxious and painful. Her crying appearance was particularly pitiful. There were also many Flamingo who were used to having a heart of stone. In the face of such a touching scene, not only did he not blame himself, but there was a hideous smile at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 921. It's normal for Doflamingo to be so cold. He was originally abnormal. He was ruthlessly treated in his childhood, which caused his whole life values to be distorted, so it's normal for him to be crazy. Because his whole life has been like this. Please let go of my mother, or I will not be polite to you. The white and tender lotus arm wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes, and Shirahoshi's eyes fell on Doflamingo, showing a rare touch of awe. The large sea king floating behind her also swam around, opening its bloody mouth, which was almost 1,000 meters long, and could even swallow the whole world, which made the Don Quixote family cadre frightened. This level of sea king, 1 or 2 or even dozens of them can be dealt with, but when this number multiplies, it becomes thousands of them? Even if Doflamingo followed suit, facing the siege of thousands of Sea King, Admiral, Yonko for emperors, or something will definitely die. Of course, Doflamingo's face is still full of morbid excitement. Looking across the layers of time and space, Doflamingo has seen him standing at the end of the sky, arrogant. Even the nightmarish enemy Dustless also bowed his head. Thinking about it, his heart jumped. Looking at Shirahoshi who was close at hand, he never felt that the position of the king of the world was so close to him. What pirate king marine admiral is simply weak? It's okay to let her go, but you? His gaze circled around Shirahoshi as Doflamingo continued to bluff. Of course I can let your mother go, but in exchange you have to immediately leave this place and serve me. Doflamingo smiled sinisterly, and there was a cunning light in the depths of his eyes. Of course he will not let go of Princess Odoheim. This is the only existence that can restrain Shirahoshi at present. Don't listen to this man's nonsense, he is lying to you, the real purpose is actually you, leave here quickly, your father will protect you. Princess Odoheim is also a veteran, and she naturally understands what Doflamingo wants, and she hurriedly shouted at Shirahoshi. You can leave, but Doflamingo was calm, took out a gun from his arms and pointed the dark muzzle at Princess Odoheim's head. If you run, your mother will be killed. Seeing this, Shirahoshi's intention to leave immediately disappeared. She looked nervously at Doflamingo, looking pitiful, and finally gave up the idea of leaving. Hey, emotional creatures are really the best to use, what a group of idiots. Doflamingo looked up to the sky and laughed unscrupulously. He saw Shirahoshi's weakness, so he used Princess Odoheim as a breakthrough point to threaten Shirahoshi. The current scene was just as he had imagined. Shirahoshi had indeed chosen to resign herself to death. By the way, Doflamingo's smile froze. If he remembered correctly, Princess Aji's husband should be King Neptune, but that guy seemed to have died many years ago. The father mentioned just now was obviously not Neptune. Who is your father? Tell me or I will kill Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi, 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 Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi, 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 I haven't seen you for a while. Your courage has grown a lot, Doflamingo. A ghostly voice suddenly entered his ears. Doflamingo instinctively broke out in goosebumps. This frivolous and lazy voice that looked down on all living things, he was very familiar with it. Not only was it familiar, but there was also a bone-deep fear. Fear of that man seemed to be an instinct, and Doflamingo himself couldn't control it. Shirahoshi, a figure appeared beside her, Dustless. Father. Seeing Dustless appear, Shirahoshi cried tears of joy, afraid that he would disappear again, so she couldn't wait to hold him up, and immediately buried him in the Jade Maiden Peak. Let go of me, Shirahoshi. Dustless said with a headache. Looking at Princess Odoheim, who was taken hostage by Doflamingo, Dustless gave her a comforting look, indicating that she didn't need to worry. What else do you have to explain, Doflamingo? Dustless asked indifferently as his emotionless eyes fell on Doflamingo. I have nothing to explain, as you can see. Shirahoshi didn't know why, perhaps it was because of his habit of being a lackey, but every time Dustless spoke, the first thought that came to his mind was how to flatter. Just thinking about it made Doflamingo angry. After being a lackey for more than 10 years, obeying Dustless had become a habit. Every time he heard Dustless's voice, he would reflexively reveal a flattering expression. That's right. Between you and me, there is indeed nothing worth saying. Perhaps I should ask directly, you captured my woman, how do you want to die? Dustless's indifferent face disappeared, and his face was as cold as a blade. Staring at his expression, there was a faint stinging pain in his eyes. Gulp, the members of the Don Quixote pirates grunted unnaturally and looked at Dustless with fear. After Whitebeard was annihilated by him, the title of the strongest man in the world fell on him. Dustless's bottomless strength made all creatures living under the sea, land, and air feel fear. Chapter 922. Compared with his subordinates whose souls were cold, Doflamingo was as calm as a mountain. I warn you, this guy caught our weakness, he will never let us go. There is only one way to betray him, death. Fearing that this group of family cadres would have some unrealistic ideas, Doflamingo had to raise his voice to warn them, and there was also an undisguised threat. Don't forget, we still have a trump card. Pointing to Princess Odoheim beside him, Doflamingo regained some confidence. The role and benefits of this hostage were absolutely beyond imagination, and her power was even more than a xianxia for emperors. After all, xianxia for emperors had to kneel when they met Dustless. Only this woman would make him indecisive. The cadre of the Don Quixote family heard this and breathed a sigh of relief. They finally had some confidence. They unanimously leaned toward Princess Odoheim. This was their temporary life-saving chip. Naturally, they had to watch her closely. Want to threaten me? If it were Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, they would have used this method. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head, squinting his eyes. This funny strategy was meaningless. Not to mention that Doflamingo didn't dare to kill Princess Odoheim now. He still needed this hostage for the time being. Taking a step back, if her blood splashed on the spot, with Rinnegan's incredible degree, resurrecting her was a trivial matter. Boom. The particles on the ground suddenly became restless, and then strangely floated in the air. Princess Odoheim was the same, the whole world seemed to be floating. The sudden scene made everyone stare at each other, including Princess Odoheim, who was also full of horror. She didn't realize what had happened. Wansho Heaven's Pull. A magnetic voice fell, and the initiator was also exposed. Doflamingo's face was full of anger, and his body was full of killing intent. Now that he and Dustless had a falling out, he naturally wouldn't show mercy. Even if Doflamingo wanted to show mercy, Dustless would definitely ignore him. Staring at the unguarded back of Princess Odoheim, Doflamingo's eyes flashed a ruthless color, and there was a dark evil smile, and immediately dozens of transparent lines popped out of his hand, connecting the limbs of Princess Odoheim. Parasitic thread. Doflamingo's finger shook slightly. Princess Odoheim's drooping limbs immediately rose up. She waved her fist with a pained expression, smashing it towards Dustless's face. Only those with excellent eyesight could see that Princess Aji's body was being controlled by transparent lines. Bang! He opened his palm and easily caught the incoming fist. This white line that controlled Princess Aji naturally could not escape Dustless's capture. Even the cold-blooded you are unable to do anything to your lover? How laughable. To think that I used to think that you were an invincible and perfect existence. It turns out that you are also immortal. Seeing that Dustless couldn't bear to kill him, Doflamingo said disdainfully, "You controlled this woman to attack. You must be helpless too, hee." Hearing this, Wuxian didn't even look at Doflamingo. He stared at the sharp white line with contempt on his face. Helpless. How laughable. Don't compare me with a mortal like you. It's easy to crack this line. Under the surprised gaze of the members of the Don Quixote pirates and Doflamingo himself, Dustless's petite right arm touched the parasitic thread connected to Princess Odoheim. Amaterasu. The line as hard as iron, as if it had encountered a deadly natural enemy, touched the black fire that could devour everything, and instantly melted and collapsed. Princess Odoheim's painful expression also recovered. You can't do it, but it doesn't mean that others can't do it. Princess Odoheim was sent to Shirahoshi's hands. Dustless's killing intent was over. You have served me for more than 10 years. Today I will give you a special discount. Everyone report to hell together. Wu Chen's eyes were filled with blood-red hostility. He took a big stride forward and crossed the space. Bastard, so fast. Everyone spread out. Doflamingo's expression changed greatly, and his pupils shrank. With just a thought, Dustless arrived as scheduled, and his abnormal speed was beyond what he had ever seen in his life. Shoo shoo shoo. The members of the Don Quixote family heard this and did not hesitate to burst back. In a fight of this level they would only be a burden, and a burden if they attacked. Wire saw. An afterimage swayed in the void, followed by an invisible cold light that was sharper than Itachi swept across, cutting iron like mud. It was completely from Doflamingo's fruit ability, and it was very powerful. In the face of such a fierce attack, an insignificant finger was gently raised. Seeing this, Doflamingo's heart was filled with anger. What are you dreaming about? Do you want to use a finger to block my attack? Do you think I am that kind of fish? The corner of his mouth that was flying all over the sky stopped abruptly, and the thinking in Doflamingo's mind was short-circuited. What happened before was like a dream. The white jade finger raised high easily blocked the sharp wire saw and completely stopped Doflamingo's attack. Dustless's expression was slightly lazy, showing a flash of light with a playful tease. Immediately, his thumb gently exerted force, and a crisp sound made everyone stagnate. Bang! The wire saw that could be said to be unparalleled, harder than steel, suddenly broke in two as fragile as paper. From the beginning to the end, Dustless only used a finger to break the string fruit's ability. Chapter 923. This dreamlike and unreal scene petrified all the Don Quixote cadres. In their hearts, Doflamingo is actually a godlike existence, the invincible strongest captain. Doflamingo's attack was stopped by the enemy with a single finger. The shock in his heart was like a stormy sea, out of control. Many of the Don Quixote cadres even pinched their skin, thinking that this was a dream, but the heart-wrenching pain made them speechless, and they all stared at Doflamingo in disbelief. When a person's faith collapses, this person will also be deeply hit and even unable to recover. The current members of the Don Quixote pirates are no more than this. Doflamingo's attack was blocked by his thumb, and these cadres' eyes were dead. They are rookies who are not even as good as Doflamingo. What can they do? They are looking for death. Bullet line. The white light like a cannonball whistled out, and its power was no less than that of a bullet from a gun. Boom. However, when it came into contact with Dustless's forehead, the white light was bounced off, and a thumb-sized hole was gouged out of the ground. Shout. A gust of wind blew, and Doflamingo quickly retreated, his brows tightly wrinkled, feeling an abnormal headache, and there was a sense of powerlessness. This is a complete violation of the rules. Whiz. The blazing temperature condensed behind him, and Doflamingo, who was unaware of it, bowed his head in thought. After all, the speed of light has an absolute advantage. Armament Haki hardening. Although it is impossible to capture with the naked eye, observation Haki detects the position of Dustless, and Doflamingo used Haki to defend himself. However, being able to defend does not mean that he can withstand it unscathed. With a cold expression, Dustless was not merciful, and his fist covered with armament Haki mercilessly greeted Doflamingo's head. Poochie. The ugly iron fist blasted Doflamingo, and the ground also pulled out a burst of smoke and dust. Because of the fierce force, Doflamingo vomited blood again and again. Shoo shoo shoo. Dustless did not intend to stop, and dense flashes filled Doflamingo's entire eye socket. Yasukani no Magatama. Doflamingo was shocked to see such an exaggerated attack. He immediately forced his swaying body to stand up. He still had dreams that had yet to be realized. He absolutely could not lie here. I can only use the awakening fruit, once. Hesitation flashed through Doflamingo's mind. At such a desperate moment, Doflamingo's strong desire to survive burst forth, driving him to burst forth with even more strength than before. Buzz buzz buzz. The ground throbbed and surged strangely. Several huge lines could be seen. Shield white line. The large lines on the ground rose from the ground and intersected in front of Doflamingo. They were as dense as a spider web, and their neat appearance was enough to defend against all attacks. Clang, clang, clang. It's too late to say this now, Master Dustless. White Zetsu shrugged frivolously and immediately cut off Doflamingo's arm. Half of the arm merged with Doflamingo's body, and the latter's body that was full of injuries healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Betrayed you? You forced me to do this. Doflamingo, who was gradually recovering, shouted. People like you can't live in this world. Your existence is a blasphemy to all living creatures. It's not just me, I'm afraid Hawkeye also has the same idea. A person who can never be surpassed, only when he disappears will the world be peaceful. When people have great power they will be isolated. Now Dustless is in this situation, including White Zetsu, who he created, also left him. Hearing this, the last remaining conscience in Dustless's heart disappeared. Human nature is so ugly. I originally wanted to destroy the world government's rule and establish my dream. Now it seems that my previous idea was a little naive. With a strange smile, Dustless suddenly said loudly, since the creation of the world is not successful, then let's just destroy the world. With the infinite Tsukuyami, we will end this rotten world. The dawn of dawn will lead all humans into a happy dream. Master Dustless, stop dreaming. My purpose is to pull you down from the altar and replace you as the new king of the world. How can I let you use that technique? Poochie. The white shadow behind him instantly penetrated Dustless's chest and inserted its hand into his heart. Immediately, a mysterious wave of energy surged out. It did not destroy Dustless's body, but unexpectedly gradually merged with it. Yin-yang release, spiritual fusion. His body quickly turned into liquid. White Zetsu's arm had turned into liquid and wanted to merge with Dustless. From the beginning, when Master Dustless created me, I understood that it was impossible to kill you. Thanks to the yin-yang release you gave me, I can replace you directly. You intend to occupy my body? How ironic. This scene is similar to Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu. Looking at the big white hand on his chest, Dustless said with emotion. Immediately, his eyes were cold, and a strange wave of energy directly evaporated the big hand of White Zetsu. How is it possible? Hurriedly pulling out his arm, White Zetsu looked at Dustless in disbelief and said, I have planned all of this for several years. It is impossible to fail. Planning for several years? Idiot. The corner of his mouth was full of ridicule and contempt. Dustless said coldly, the one who created you is me. The one who gave you the yin-yang release is also me. Secondly, I am not Uchiha Madara and you are not Black Zetsu. Chapter 925. White Setsu's eyes widened in disbelief, and his pupils widened to the largest extent in his life. Impossible, how can you ignore that technique? White Setsu shook his head, thinking that this was a dream, and he wanted to free himself from the illusion. His expression was quite painful. The plan he had secretly planned for many years was now in vain, and he was deeply hurt. And he had exposed himself. In this world there is no invincible technique. Turning his head to look at White Setsu with pity, Dustless looked down at him, shook his head, and explained sympathetically, "A stream is always a stream. Even if he and the sea have the same root, it is impossible to assimilate the sea with his gurgling water." Compared to Dustless, White Setsu's weak control of the yin-yang escape was not worth mentioning. Wanting to devour his will and take his body for himself was a fool's dream. In short, White Setsu thought he had a card up his sleeve, but in fact it was just a joke. It was unrealistic. "What are your last words?" Looking at White Setsu, who had a mental breakdown, Dustless asked very uninterestedly. It seemed that White Setsu's last card was not used at all. "Last words? What a joke. I still want to take your body. How can I die in this ghost place?" White Setsu's expression was ferocious, and his words were full of desire and yearning. He was the same as Doflamingo and could even hide better than Doflamingo. After being Dustless's lackey for so many years, White Setsu also wanted to understand what it felt like to step on the heads of the world's common people. The mountains don't move, the water moves. There will be a lot of time in the future. Let's wait and see. The moment the voice fell, White Setsu's body began to sink. Now he had completely fallen out with Dustless and naturally could not follow him. "You bastard, you want to abandon me and escape alone?" Doflamingo's bewildered voice came, but White Setsu was expressionless. He treated Doflamingo as air and did not put him in his eyes at all. He was just a chess piece. A dog biting another dog. "Doflamingo, you don't have to feel sad." Seeing Doflamingo's murderous expression, Dustless patted his chest and gave a thumbs up, assuring, "Don't worry. Both of you will go to the netherworld to continue your fate. If there is any unresolved hatred, we won't eat it. Now, it's better to let me kill both of you first." "You want to kill me?" "Dream." White Zu groaned. He sounded very proud. Then he sank into the ground and disappeared. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. "Do you think that I can't do anything to you? What a failure. I actually created such an idiot." Wu Chen laughed bitterly at himself. His words were full of sarcasm. "Kill me if you dare." Bai Zu, who was deep under the Merman Island, roared furiously. He naturally understood the ridicule behind Wu Chen's words. Hence he did not back down and mocked back. "I will kill that bastard called White Setsu, but before that, you go to hell first, Louis South." Doflamingo's aura soared, and the hidden potential in his body was also stimulated. He erupted with an absolute power that could topple mountains and overturn seas, and the ground trembled with the rhythm of Doflamingo. The scene was terrifying. "You still don't want to give up?" Dustless glanced at him with the eye power of Rinnegan. He sighed lightly and ripples appeared in his eyes. Tomb of Samsara, border prison. Doflamingo continued to accumulate strength, and increased his strength to an unprecedented level. After a while, he opened his mouth and showed a savage smile. "This time I will definitely tear you to shreds." "Ka ka ka," the crisp sound of bones cracking broke the dull atmosphere. Looking up, Doflamingo's head had been separated from his body, and the head on the ground had turned into minced meat. "This guy is still useful. He was beaten like this by the shadow. Forget it." With a sigh, Dustless used Kamui to devour Doflamingo's body. Immediately, ripples appeared in the void, and a strange spiral-shaped sword appeared in Dustless's hand out of thin air. The moment this strange sword appeared, the surrounding space was dead silent. The strange sword was surrounded by scarlet blood light, and it seemed to be reading the data of this world, preparing to destroy it. "You think you can escape by hiding in the deep sea? I hate traitors the most, White Setsu. You still have a long way to go if you want to escape from Guile Sword's capture." Looking around, he saw that the entire Fishman Island was gradually collapsing. It was only a matter of time before it was destroyed. In that case, it was better to let Dustless do it thoroughly. With cold eyes, Dustless immediately began to control Guile Sword with all his strength. Whoosh! The strange spiral sword was like the culprit that destroyed the world. It was surrounded by a desperate and chilling aura, and then it started to rotate. At first, it was just a weak fiery red tornado, and the range was not large, but with Dustless's strength, the Fishman Island had a huge change in the blink of an eye. The fiery red tornado instantly expanded thousands of times, forming a huge fiery red sword storm under the sea. It was like a black hole that swallowed everything around it. The Fishman Island collapsed in an instant, and White Zetsu, who was desperately escaping, was also swept in. Chapter 926. Sensing the wind and waves behind him that wanted to tear him to shreds, White Jew was no longer as arrogant and conceited as before. He used all the strength in his body to escape. He never thought that Dustless still had such a peerlessly terrifying move. Boom boom boom. Deep under the sea, the fiery red tornado continued to expand. The entire Fishman Island was collapsing rapidly. Everything on the island was swallowed by the storm. Wood release, descent of the tree world. Sensing that he couldn't pull away from the tornado, White Zetsu clenched his teeth. The chakra in his body surged. His hands quickly formed a seal, and a large forest appeared in the depths of the sea. You actually thought that the descent of the tree world could stop the sharpness of the good separation sword. Are you looking down on me or this guy? Touching the spiral sword in his hand, Dustless muttered to himself. He stared at the forest in the depths of the sea that was stacked up like a city wall. He couldn't help but shake his head. If he wanted to stop the good separation sword, this was far from enough. The Crimson Sword storm continued to expand its range. It almost destroyed the forest formed by the descent of the tree world in an instant. White Zetsu was also swallowed. The miserable cry was endless. White Zetsu's body was crushed layer by layer. The desperate cry was filled with fear. He wanted to beg Dustless to let him go, but the next second he disappeared forever with his bones. Of course, the Fishman Island that disappeared into dust. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. The Fishman Island was completely wiped out by Dustless's powerful strength from this planet. There was no longer a place called the Fishman Island in this world. Did you find the thing? At this moment, inside the Dressrosa Palace, Dustless was sitting comfortably on the seat that belonged to Doflamingo. He was taking a nap and he was humming a leisurely tune from time to time. He was as happy as a god. Inside the room, there were a few white and alluring bodies on the soft bed. Their white skin was faintly discernible under the blankets, and they were indulging in wild and fanciful thoughts. Other than that, Dustless himself was also dressed in pajamas. It was obvious that he had just done something that was not suitable for children. Califa, Hancock, Perona, and Princess Odoheim were rolling on the bed. Princess Odoheim's face was red like a ruby. It wasn't that she was shameless, but Dustless's tough methods were really unreasonable. Sometimes, the more she resisted, the more it would arouse Dustless's interest in hunting. Thus, Princess Aji could only let it be. Robin has deceived the Straw Hats into going to Dressrosa, but they seem to be leaving soon to travel to the next island. She didn't care that her perfect body was exposed in front of Dustless's eyes. Hancock put on her own clothes, regardless of Dustless's wolfish eyes. She was calm. Among the women, Hancock was the one who followed Dustless the longest, so she knew his character well. No matter what she did, she could do it freely. Is the Straw Hats going to travel? No, I think it's over. Since that kid likes to be the Pirate King so much, I'll use the infinite Tsukuyumi Jutsu to pull him into the dream world and let him be the Pirate King for a lifetime. Really, I'm becoming more and more kind. Dustless's words caused the women to roll their eyes and stare at Dustless angrily. Although they didn't know what the infinite Tsukuyumi Jutsu was, they knew from Dustless's mouth that this jutsu covered the whole human race. Hearing that Dustless was going to do something to the whole world, the women found it difficult to accept. After all, this was their home for survival. But later, as time passed, their feelings and ties to this world gradually faded. Whether it was Princess Odoheim, Califa, Perona, Hancock, and other women, there was nothing in this world worth remembering. Knock. In the dimly lit room, there was a sudden knock on the door. Dustless bowed his head and looked at Hancock and the other women. They also quickly put on their clothes. Creak. About 10 minutes later, Hancock tidied up her clothes and opened the door with elegant steps. Royce South Saint. Caesar Kalong, who ran in, nodded and bowed. He didn't even have the courage to raise his head and look directly at Dustless. Turning to the right, on the left, hidden in the dark space, the emotionless corpse was clearly visible. Was Doflamingo. With the idea of saving resources, the arrogant Doflamingo was also made one of the 6 paths of pain by Dustless. What's the matter? Don't tell me who is bothering you again. Stretching, Dustless's tone was warning. Most of the time, this guy came to him for various problems. Either he was bullied or he had problems with his research. That's not it. Pluton has been completed perfectly and can be dispatched at any time to end the world in front of us. Caesar shook his head like a rattle drum and immediately replied, "According to your orders, all of the Netherworld King's cannons have been aimed at Dressrosa. As long as you give the order, we can destroy this island in an instant." Chapter 927. Caesar bent over carefully, raised his eyes and glanced at Wu Qin. He chose to keep silent. Based on Caesar's cognition, the man in front of him was a temperamental person. If Wu Qin was angered because of his words, it would be a loss if he was killed. "Well, you can go back. When I order you to attack Dressrosa, I will use Den Den Mushi to inform you." Rubbing his temples, Wu Qin said drowsily and waved his hand. He didn't care about Caesar's reply and directly asked him to leave. "Understood." Caesar nodded and immediately stood up and turned to leave. "Master, didn't you say that infinite Tsukuyomi is a one-time ability to destroy the world? The existence of Pluto is already superfluous and completely useless." Hancock tilted her head and wondered. In this world, her relationship with Dustless was the closest. Some unknown secrets, Dustless was happy to tell her. Although infinite Tsukuyomi is the enemy of all creatures, there is an exception to everything. Maybe, there is a fish that I didn't expect to slip through the net. Infinite Tsukuyomi is a world-destroying technique, but it doesn't mean that it is invincible. Maybe there is some strange ability that can take advantage of the infinite Tsukuyomi. After all, Uchiha Sasuke's Kansusanu is a lesson. Although Dustless is very confident in the infinite Tsukuyomi, he has already reached the last step, and it's not wrong to take risks. "I'll use this thing to trick all the strong people in the world into going to Dressrosa, then use Hades to bombard Dressrosa, and then use infinite Tsukuyomi to end this world. This is my plan." Dustless had a slightly old and yellow blueprint in his hand, but he could clearly see all kinds of data, and the outline of the whole day was an unprecedented giant ship. "It is the design of Pluto. After a few days, Doflamingo, one of the 6 paths under my control, will announce to the world that the prize for the winner of this arena is the ancient weapon, Pluto's design." Speaking of this, Dustless was already murderous. Deceiving the strong people of the world to attack Dressrosa, and then using Pluto to bombard them, and finally the main dish, infinite Tsukuyomi. This is undoubtedly a lot safer. With Pluto's design as the reward, it can attract the major forces of the world, whether it is the Xianxia 4 emperors, or the admirals of the marine headquarters including the hidden revolutionary army, and even the Gorosei 5 elder stars, will personally come to Dressrosa. When the time came, he would activate the ancient weapon Pluto to annihilate all of them. Even if there were the occasional undying fish that escaped the net, there was still infinite Tsukuyomi waiting for them. This way Dustless would be able to rest easy. Inexplicably taking out Pluto's design as bait, others will definitely feel that there is a conspiracy. Hancock gently handed over the steaming hot tea, then said with some worry, "The group of people from the Marine headquarters and the Revolutionary Army, including the Xianxia 4 emperors, are not idiots. It's impossible for them to be stupid enough to fall into the trap. There is no need to worry about this kind of small problem. As long as the design is real, even if they know it is a trap, they will rush to get in. This is human nature, whether it is the Revolutionary Army, Red Hair Shanks and Blackbeard of the Xianxia 4 emperors, or the Gorosei 5 elder stars, and Sakazuki of the world government. These people are eager to get Pluto's design." Wu Qin explained firmly. In fact, it was the same meaning. If there was something that could increase his strength, even if he knew it was a trap, Wu Qin would give it a try. Human nature is greedy, this is what it means. In addition, there is no doubt that the pirates certainly don't want ancient weapons to fall into the hands of the government. The same is true for the Gorosei 5 elder stars. They hope that the government can control Pluto, and the Revolutionary Army also has its own ideas. Therefore, it is destined that this group of people will gather at Dressrosa. Once the goal is achieved, Dustless will order Caesar to completely destroy Dressrosa. What is waiting for them is the infinite Tsukuyomi. It is never wrong to prepare for a rainy day. By the way, what is the situation in the New World recently? 100 Beast Kaido and Bigumamu are dead, and most of the pirates in the world are in dispute. Uchiha Madara replaced 100 Beast Kaido, but his territories were not inherited by Dustless and Bigumamu. Therefore, pirates all over the world are killing each other, and they are all jealous of the remaining Xianxia 4 emperors' position. Those pirates are really short-sighted. During this cruel time of fighting for the position of Xianxia 4 emperors, The Marine headquarters watched from the sidelines and turned a deaf ear to the struggle for hegemony of the Jianghu four emperors. Fleet Admiral Akainu Sakazuki didn't send out a single soldier, and a large group of pirates killed each other. In the end, it was the Marine who benefited. The Revolutionary Army and Akagami, Red Hair, pirates have been very close recently. After a long silence, Hancock suddenly said something surprising. This is expected. The relationship between Luffy and Red Hair Shanks is well known, and Luffy's father is the leader of the Revolutionary Army. It is normal for Red Hair Shanks to hook up with him. Speaking of this, Dustless's tone suddenly stagnated and immediately sneered. The two of them have a common enemy, and that is me. Red Hair Shanks and Dragon are not people who sit still and wait for death. It is natural for them to choose another way out. It is normal for them to collude together to deal with me. Chapter 928. Speaking of this, Dustless's tone suddenly stagnated and he immediately sneered. They both have a common enemy, which is me. Red Hair Shanks and Drago are not people who wait for death. It's natural for them to choose another way out. It's normal for them to collude with each other to deal with me. The conspiracy of Drago and Red Hair Shanks, and even other people participated in it, was also within Dustless's expectations. No one would sit still and wait for death. It was normal for them to even give up their grudges and work together with Blackbeard in the past. There was no eternal grudge, only eternal interest. Blackbeard also regarded Dustless as his biggest enemy, so it was normal for them to go together. In fact, as Dustless thought, Blackbeard and Red Hair Shanks had contact during this period. Do you think you can stop me by joining forces? It's as ridiculous as the sun rising from the west tomorrow. Gao Yang's mouth showed contempt, and Dustless sneered at the approach of Jianghu four emperors and the Revolutionary Army. It's all young master's fault. Hancock rolled her eyes and complained. If she was Red Hair Shanks, Manchi D. Drago and others, she would choose the same approach. After all, with a godlike enemy, there was no other way but to join forces. That's because they brought it upon themselves. This is the price of going against me. Dustless's murderous intent was exposed, and his whole body was filled with a dangerous aura. His pair of deep eyes instantly became as cold as a beast. Red Hair Shanks opposed me more than 10 years ago. Later I cut off his arm. I thought that kid would be more sensible, but now it seems that he didn't realize his shortcomings. Instead, he became even more aggressive. Since he was so insensible, Dustless could only crush him. By the way, young master, as if thinking of something, Hancock frowned. A few days ago Clia had suddenly visited and you happened to be away from Mariewa. Dustless was confused when he heard that. He scratched his head and didn't remember that he knew this person. Then he asked blankly, I don't seem to have any connection with this person, especially since there is a holy behind her name. She should be a celestial dragon. I don't have such a person. Suddenly, a beautiful golden figure appeared in his mind. Wu Chen suddenly thought of his fiancée of more than 10 years. Long golden hair cascaded down his back like a waterfall. His eyes were pure and flawless like gems. His perfect face was like a masterpiece of the heavens, a work of the gods. He was wearing a slender holy sword and his aura was noble and pure. Every inch of his body was abnormally perfect. That's strange. Why did she suddenly come looking for me? It's been more than 10 years. I thought that Clia had already died. Also, she hasn't come looking for me for more than 10 years. I'm afraid that she's already old. Dustless waved his hand and said in annoyance, Tell her not to look for me in the future. Anyway, the two of them didn't have any connection. They had only met once and Dustless almost killed her at that time. There was no need to think about the relationship between the two of them. Young master, you worry too much. Clia, holy, is the same as the young man. Her appearance hasn't deteriorated. She still maintains her original appearance. Hancock smiled mysteriously. Just her? Dustless had a strange expression on his face when he heard that. It wasn't that he looked down on her. That girl named Clia had the strength of a general. At most, she was in the category of Kaido and the others. In the eyes of the world, she was strong enough, but it was impossible for her to stay young forever. Forget it. No matter what, don't ask her to look for me in the future. Otherwise, I won't be polite. Dustless didn't have a good impression of that Clia, holy. He still clearly remembered that she not only broke into Dustless's bedroom, but also criticized Dustless's writing. And that woman is very strange. She doesn't seem to belong to the human race. I'm not interested in that kind of person. Dustless shivered unnaturally. What if a toad turned into a human and he became her fiancé? Dustless shivered thinking about it. Ta-ta-ta. Suddenly there were messy footsteps in the corridor. Khalifa? Staring at Khalifa who suddenly appeared, Dustless was surprised. Before he arranged for Khalifa to collect information. Now that White Zetsu betrayed them, all the information fell on Khalifa's head. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dorag and Shanks met. It seems that there is also Marshal Detich. Khalifa's tone was extremely uncalm. This was equivalent to 3 Xianxia, 4 emperors, teaming up. It has nothing to do with me. This should be the Marines' concern. It's not our turn to care. Dustless chuckled. He was unusually calm. Then he added, if the 3 of them can team up and come to Dressrosa to die, that would be the best. Dressrosa, with its beautiful scenery, was very suitable to be the tomb of the Xianxia, 4 emperors. Master, don't dream about it. Hancock complained. Dustless smiled mysteriously. No, this is not a dream. Maybe it won't be long before the Xianxia, 4 emperors, come to Dressrosa to die. On an island in the New World, there were 3 warships docked at the port. The warships didn't have any flags and the power they belonged to was unknown. But the people who came down from them belonged to the people who could make the world tremble. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dorag, Sabo, the current Xianxia, 4 emperors, Shanks, Blackbeard, and an unexpected figure, Uchiha Madara. Chapter 929. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Durag, Sabo, the current Xianxia, Shanks, Blackbeard, and an unexpected figure, Tendo Uchiha Madara. A few days ago, Dustless accidentally controlled Uchiha Madara to encounter Shanks. As a result, this guy happened to say something about an alliance to deal with the huge crisis brought by the Marine. Curious, Dustless also readily agreed. That's why today's meeting was held. Why is this guy in this meeting? I didn't get any notice in advance. In the temporary building, Blackbeard took the opportunity to attack Uchiha Madara. His body was full of high density and terrifying hostility. He didn't have a good impression of Uchiha Madara. Oh, you didn't get any notice in advance, but I knew it a long time ago. You're just an insignificant person. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara smiled, giving people a feeling of being quite approachable. But in Blackbeard's ears, it was particularly harsh. I'm also very surprised. Uchiha Madara stared at Blackbeard with a playful gaze and immediately sneered, showing an expression of shame. I didn't expect to meet a cat or a dog like you, bad luck. Hearing this, Blackbeard's old face twitched. He naturally understood what Uchiha Madara meant. A few years ago he was defeated by Uchiha Madara. And the battle was almost one-sided. Blackbeard was crushed and beaten by Uchiha Madara. At that time he was like a baby in swaddling clothes without any power to fight back. The two sides were not in the same dimension at all. I'm not what I used to be. After that, Blackbeard released an awe-inspiring and overbearing momentum, and the whole person's momentum was monstrous. Boom. Outside the room, even if he didn't have Haushiku Haki at this moment, endless darkness spewed out from his body, covering the sky and the earth, and the void within a radius of tens of kilometers was dim. It wasn't just that. The boundless horizon was covered in cracks, and it was riddled with holes. It was a complete mess. The cracks spread out without any pattern, and it seemed as if they were about to swallow the entire sky. The ability of Tremor Fruit, Blackbeard obviously practiced to the extreme. In the past 2 years he also made rapid progress. Bang, bang, bang. The cold wind suddenly hit, and Blackbeard's momentum shattered the window. Not only that, the whole earth and the house swayed with his frequency. Do you want to fight? Uchiha Madara asked indifferently with a cold smile on his face. His casual words ignited the flames in Blackbeard's heart. His entire being was like a barrel of gunpowder that had been ignited, filled with explosive danger. Blackbeard wasn't an idiot. From this casual sentence, he knew that he was being looked down upon by this guy again. Since becoming a Xianxia, he has always been arrogant. This was the first time he was ridiculed. This old thing will never amount to anything great. In the end he can only be one of the 4 emperors. Two's Uchiha Madara, Dustless, Blackbeard, and Blackbeard's has made no progress in other. Blackbeard, if you want to fight, I have no right to stop it, but I will stand on his side. Pointing to Uchiha Madara, Red Hair Shanks said very wisely. Me too, I will stand on his side. Taking a deep look at Red Hair Shanks, the reticent Durag said. You want to work together to deal with me? Blackbeard vomited blood and cursed in his heart. He was also a smart person and he naturally knew what this meant. Not only Uchiha Madara looked down on him, but Durag and Red Hair Shanks also looked down on him. In the troubled world, the strong are respected, and the two of them turned to Uchiha Madara because they agreed that Uchiha Madara was stronger than Blackbeard. Otherwise, Red Hair Shanks and Durag may have teamed up with Blackbeard to deal with Uchiha Madara. In the end, in this world, the strong people have the final say, and in the end they think that Uchiha Madara has a better future. It's all to deal with the Marine. It's not too late to talk about personal grievances later. Knocking lightly on the table, Durag's voice was soft but full of reason. Giving Uchiha Madara a fierce look, the angry Blackbeard restrained his anger. Even if Durag and Red Hair Shanks really scared him, Blackbeard didn't dare to act rashly. You only have one life and if you lose the bet it's gone. Yes, this time I came up to discuss how to deal with Royce South. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, laughed and continued to control Uchiha Madara. I recently got information that Royce South is in Dressrosa. We should ambush him immediately. Otherwise, when he returns to the Marine headquarters or Mariehua, it will be difficult to kill him. That's right, this is indeed an opportunity. The Marine headquarters is full of strong people, and Mariehua is full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Blackbeard rarely agreed with Uchiha Madara's point of view, bowing his head and agreeing. Being beaten by Dustless in succession has become his shadow, and this thorn in his flesh must be pulled out. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.